Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Thursday, March 19th, 2026 open session for the Board of Carroll County Commissioners. We will begin, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Well, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Our open session today will follow a bit of a different schedule. We're going to begin today with agency hearings, wherein departments and partner agencies and others will appear before this board to make additional requests for the FY27 budget. I will certainly remind all of us that we do have a tight schedule to keep today, and so I want to implore everybody to please try to keep within the allotted time that you've been given so we can make sure to hear from everybody in a timely fashion. And we're looking forward to what you have to say. So first up, we have, I believe, Carroll County Public Schools. Please come on down. Good to see you, Cindy.
See you.
Good morning. Got your whole crew with you.
We do. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss the board's FY27 budget request. With me today, I have John O'Neill, Assistant Superintendent of Operations, Rob Burke, CFO, Nick Shockney, Assistant Superintendent of Instruction, Ernesto Diaz, Director of HR, and Ray Prokop, Director of Facilities Management. So hopefully, with all of us here, we'll be able to answer any questions you may have. We look forward to the opportunity today, but also the opportunity for the joint meeting that will take place in April. We'll have time to get into some deeper details at that point. So today, we just want to be able to explain the FY27 request. We also want to just provide a quick 5-year budget perspective that will go into more detail in April. We also want to request an adjustment to the CIP for FY27 that would still be within the existing 6-year plan, and then respond to any questions you may have. For our operating budget request this year, we took an approach to balancing the budget through reductions and requests of one-time funding in order to manage our request for ongoing operating revenue. Ultimately, the board's request for ongoing revenue is $14 million in FY27. This is $6.4 million above the amount in your county plan. It includes the reduction of 22 FTE from our operating budget, 7 from a blueprint program that sunsets now, and 15 classroom positions that are commensurate with enrollment decline that we're seeing. So we're seeking $4 million in one-time capital funding, and that includes $3 million for facilities maintenance, which we're no longer able to support in our operating budget. $1 million for a technology refresh for devices that are out of warranty. And then of note, originally we had $4 million in for the startup of the charter school, but they've let us know that they'll be deferring to FY28. So you won't see that $4 million in here. Lastly, today we also want to just do a quick 5-year glance for you so that you can see what we're forecasting for the next 5 years. For just one moment, on this slide, we'd like to turn our attention to the capital budget. First, I want to thank the commissioners for providing the direction to include the feasibility study for Liberty High School in FY27. That action was going to be among our requests, and this feasibility study will make it much easier for us to have the conversation about whether we're going to make the bigger decision to fund the modernization in the near future. So we really need that feasibility study in order to do that. Our other request for FY '27 capital funding is that you would fund the design costs for the Century High School roof replacement and the Piney Ridge Elementary School HVAC renovation. This would require to move our priorities within the existing six-year plan, but not change the six-year plan at all. And this action recognizes the deferral of the Freedom Elementary and Sykesville Middle additions in our CIP. And more importantly, it puts us in a position to maximize the available state CIP funding for FY '28. Without this action, we'd be leaving state funding on the table, which we certainly don't want to do. At this time, I'll turn it over to John.
Okay, good morning.
Morning.
So this slide addresses the ongoing revenue increase. So there you see the $14 million that the superintendent just outlined. Also, as you know, some of our funding comes from the state, so given what's happening in the General Assembly now, we do anticipate about $6.5 million in additional state revenue to work with. So that brings our projected total revenue in the request to $20.5 million. And now we're looking at our known or anticipated expenditures. In some cases, these are known, and in some cases, these are anticipated. So that top line's the big one. That includes sort of what we would always refer to as our inflationary impacts, or you might want to say the cost of doing business. Some of that is part of that ongoing process, utilities, insurances, et cetera. The rest is employee compensation increases. We have 5 unions. 2 of those negotiated agreements are settled and ratified, and 3 are actively being negotiated even as we sit here. There is, on the second line, and this is now becoming a pattern for us, unfortunately, that is a carryover into fiscal '27 from the negotiated agreements with 2 of the unions last year. And so some of our employee groups have negotiated what we often refer to as an annual interval, or sometimes you might have historically heard that referred to as a step increment or a step increase. In last year's contracts, we were not able to fund the annual step increase for the full year, and so it was deferred until a certain point in the year so that it would be budget neutral in fiscal '26. But in fiscal '27, we have to be able to fund that step for the entire year going forward. Dr. McCabe talked about maintenance and technology as part of the board's one-time or capital funding requests, and so there you can see those 2 items outlined. There's also separately, but I guess because I've heard you discuss it in watching your meetings, there's also the separate $1 million request we sent for for some assistance with the replacement of the lights at Francis Scott Key and South Carroll. So here we are with the projected revenue versus the projected expenditures, which leaves a gap of $6 million. And the plan to close that $6 million gap, or the request to close that $6 million gap, includes the reduction of the 15 FTE that the superintendent mentioned. We have, our known enrollment changes this year is minus 436.75 FTE of children. And what we're trying to do is go back to a pattern that unfortunately we used in the decade that Superintendent Guthrie was our superintendent, where we sort of try to maintain our student-teacher ratio based on the declining enrollment, and so that would equate to us reducing 15 teaching FTE to sort of relate to that 436 decline in student enrollment. Those would not likely be people being laid off or terminated. Those would be positions that would be eliminated through attrition, retirements, separations, leaves of absence, et cetera. There are 7 FTE associated with a blueprint program that sunsets at the end of this year. It's called TSI, or Transitional Supplemental Instruction. It's Early Grades Intervention. That program phases out of blueprint next year, and while we might have wanted to keep those services, we recognize we're not in a fiscal position to try to make that request. So that's another 7 FTE that would be that are eliminated for FY '27. And then, as Superintendent mentioned, she tried to, in the budget she proposed to the Board of Ed, which was ultimately adopted, try to find a balance of cuts, which you see on the first 2 lines, with one-time funding requests, and then the ongoing requests. So the other adjustment there are those one-time funding requests for maintenance and technology, and that's an ongoing situation for us. So we have cut our operational maintenance funds over many, many years. And for the last, I guess, about 8 fiscal years, we've tried to take the approach that the Board of Ed would fund the ongoing maintenance of schools and properties. So this isn't large CIP matters that go through the CIP process. This is just general maintenance. And the Board of Ed had been doing a decent job of populating a local infrastructure renewal account for many years from its own annual surpluses or fund balance. But we've kind of reached a point, at least for the time being, where we've exhausted our fund balance down to the bottom of our policy level. And so right now, we're sort of stuck on that issue and therefore making the request. I am not going to try to explain this now other than to just share it with you. As the superintendent said, she'd like to make this the discussion or a primary discussion at the April 23rd, I believe, joint meeting. But this is the 5-year forecast that we took on our operating budget in our work sessions and meetings with the Board of Ed. So there's been some public discussion on this. I know I heard Ted one time mention this when he was presenting to you. So it's just our attempt to try to look ahead with what we're seeing in terms of state funding under Blueprint, but with what appears to be a developing pattern of enrollment decline at the same time. So that kind of tempers what we expect from the state. What's in your county plan, I will say that for 32, because your plan didn't go out that far, we did add a 3% increase, just making the assumption that it would follow pattern. So it shows projected revenues, and then in the middle it shows expenditures based on some of the categories I've seen, or we've discussed. We'll talk about this more in April, but there's some assumptions built in here for compensation and other things. And it just sort of begins to forecast the variance and some of the challenges in the future for us as a school system. And in particular, this will be the case if enrollment continues on the trend it's been on for the last 2 years. So with that, I hope we did not use all of our time, and we'll pause, and if you have questions.
So with the decline in enrollment, the 436.5 students, I think is the number, what does that equate to in loss of state funding?
It's not as clear as it once was, Commissioner, to answer that question, because the Blueprint funding patterns increase in the out years. So in the prior decade of cuts that we've often discussed, it would have been a loss in aid. It would have been a negative. Now that's, I think somebody else has control of the computer. It's not as clear now because the targeted per pupil amounts increase every year under Blueprint. So yeah, we're forecasting about a $3 million increase. If you want to view it the other way, that's probably about a $6 to $8 million loss that otherwise would have been there if enrollment had continued on what were our 5-year projections 2 years ago.
So on the one hand, the funding will decline because of the decline in enrollment. On the other hand, Blueprint provides something.
Yeah.
I don't want to say to offset the balance because they're not exactly the same thing.
It doesn't balance out. There's also a built-in hold harmless in the Blueprint law, and we haven't quite hit that valley yet. It's either your current year's enrollment drop or a 3-year rolling average of your enrollment. So Rob might need to correct me, we're either hitting year 3 or we'll hit year 3 next year, but we're about to hit that place where our annual decline would be more or less no more beneficial than the 3-year average. So, we're hoping that it's not a pattern that endures.
Right.
But some of us, I think everyone here has been here long enough to know that it can certainly be a pattern that endures because it has occurred in our lifetime. It's a movie we all starred in and would really like to not be a part of again. But really 3 years in a row in terms of not meeting projections, and this year being a pretty significant decline, suggests that might be where we're headed.
Got it. Commissioner Kyler, I believe you have your hand up.
Yes, a point of order first. Thanks to Chris Swam, I can only see the back of your head, so I don't get to see your poker faces. So if you react, I won't even know it. But one of the things I'd like to see April 23rd, I know you're doing, we want to fund a feasibility study for Liberty, but I'd like to see your best guess on what it will cost the county and in what years if you decide to replace it at the same site, because I think, and Ted said this a couple of times, if we're going to fund a feasibility study, we realistically should fund what the outcome's going to be, and we can guess at it, I know, but you can guess better.
Yes, sir, we can do that, Mr. Kyler, and as you would know, or as probably everyone would know, the way we do our budget estimates this early is to follow the state worksheet, and that ultimately applies a state average cost per square foot of construction to the presumed square feet. So but it's in the $140 million range. Now, that wouldn't be the county's entire cost. We would apply the state cost share to that, but we can produce that number for you. And that, on an earlier slide that the superintendent presented on capital, there were two bullets at the bottom, sort of like a broader view of capital program. That's one of the questions we have, and I think that's probably the ultimate question for the county as a whole is can the county fund the modernization of Liberty, or frankly any modernization? Because if it's not Liberty, there's a whole line of schools that follow, and the answer to that question ultimately will decide the next 6-year window of planning. If it's not a modernization, then it would shift to other HVACs, roof replacements, those kind of projects. So that's a big question lurking. I think the importance of the feasibility study and why we appreciate you funding that is that it can answer a lot of the options and then get to the real cost, and then the county together, all the elected bodies together can make that permanent decision. But we'll produce the numbers for you.
And I don't know what your guys' plan what your plan is, but I think sooner or later we need to replace Freedom Elementary on another site. That site's not big enough for the existing school. But I don't know if you have that in your plans, but I'd be curious about that on April 23rd also.
We'll bring so in the Educational Facilities Master Plan, there's the priority of modernizations. We'll bring that as a printout with us. I think Freedom is on the list, certainly, as all schools would be, but I think it's probably 10th or 11th on the list of schools to be modernized.
Any other questions?
And
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sure declining enrollment affects that.
Yes, sir.
Couple questions.
Yes.
First of all, on the 5-year budget forecast, you said your assumptions are the 3% increase?
For county
In these
revenue.
numbers from the 5-year, what's the escalator in there?
For revenue, it is
Page
our best guess of what state revenue might be with declining enrollment, but with increased targeted per pupils at the state level. For the county column, the first 4 years are your plan amount, so those are copied from your plan.
So that's the 3%?
Yes,
Okay.
the last year wouldn't be in your plan yet, we just we assumed 3% and made
And do you know
that-
what it has been historically, what you've ended up with, not what was planned? What was the historic increase?
I don't know, Ted.
We could get that, just so we know, if we're budgeting based on what happened in the past or where the number comes from.
Ted, I think you.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. In recent years, the plan has been 3%, but what they've actually been getting is probably more like 5 or 6%.
It'd be nice to know what we end up with, and how we forecast.
But that's not a forecast. That's because of the action the commissioners actually took.
No, I understand, but if you keep making this, if you keep saying you're going to do 3% and you're really doing 4 and 5, you're not really doing a good assumption. So we just have to sort of look back and see what happens with the state funding. But the one thing that keeps coming up, and this has been going on for many, many years, is that we always show up on the charts as the last for the local wealth. Well, the local wealth, we're like last because we're a fairly wealthy state, a county compared to everybody else. But we always showing up as 24th, but yet the county puts a lot of effort in. How do we explain that? And it's based on, I mean, people look at that one data point and say, oh, we're per pupil bottom. But yet what we put in is very high, but the one thing we're really low on, especially with Blueprint, is the ESA, English is a second language, ESL, whatever they call it now. So how do we explain that when in all the other statistics we're actually doing pretty well? I mean,
I don't know that we've ever attempted to explain it. It's just a factual piece of data reported by DLS. It's part of the tapestry of what we're looking at in the future. If enrollment declines, if we stay at 3%, or if Ted says 5% and we run it that way, I think what the superintendent's trying to do is just say, what reasonably can we plan for the future of the school system and what changes, including reductions, would become necessary. The biggest assumption there is compensation. And, I said we talk about it more on the 23rd. We made an assumption for the column called compensation of a step increment in 2% in each of those years. But as you know, we're subject to collective bargaining, so just because we just tried to pick a number that we thought was an objective enough number to have a conversation around, that no one on any side of that issue would get too unhinged on that number. But we don't know what we're going to be able to negotiate successfully in any given year, so that's a pretty big variable. But I think what Cindy's wanting to have an ongoing conversation with the Board of Ed and with you when we have the chances are, what do we as a county foresee for the future of
If only
Carroll
we
County
had a
Public
crystal ball.
Right.
And it's a good exercise to do. But the one thing that I'm trying to do is get more of our capital needs taken care of. And as you pointed out, I think at our last meeting, we're with 40 schools, and how many of them are over 35 years old? We're looking at a modernization almost every year. That's a lot. And we've got to, that's the reality. We're not building schools anymore. We're modernizing the old ones. And we really do have to do that at some point, especially the HVAC systems. And as you said, some of the things cost as much, they're very expensive. So I want to focus on that, because if we have to eat those things, it's got to be part of our long-term plan of how we're going to pay for it, because we've got to figure it out. We can't just say, oh, we're going to wait. At some point, it's got to be done. So when you come back, and that's why on Freedom, I want to make it very clear, the issue with Freedom right now, it does need to be done at some point, but if we don't get a site now, we will not have a site to put it on, because there's no land left in that area. That's why we're trying to put that down, get that settled. Because in the past, we used to bank school sites, and for some reason, we haven't banked school sites in a very long time, which is something we've got to figure out between you and us, who's responsible for it. It used to be the Planning Commission would recommend it, now they don't think they were. So someone's got to be looking forward and saying, based on these things, which ones would we for sure need a new site, or potentially need a new site, or whatever, because it's certain areas that might not be an option. And because we're so tightly condensed in that area, that it's becoming less of an option. That's why we're trying to get the site part of it, settled down. When you come back, I want to understand more about the whole capital issue. And do we participate in the Build to Learn? Have we ever done any schools in that?
East Middle School.
East Middle, do we plan to use that again?
Well, it's exhausted at this point, so that would be up to the General Assembly to have a Built to Learn 2.0, if you will. Right now, that's not an option for us, but I think we were first in line. East Middle may have been the very first school to.
Was that successful?
Yes, it was very successful.
What was different about it?
Built to Learn was a separate. It was separate from the traditional state CIP process. It was a separate pool of money that was bonded through the Stadium Authority, and so. In my memory, Commissioner Krebs, the larger systems had an earmarked dollar amount, and the smaller systems had sort of an amount based on percentage of enrollment. And our amount was just nice enough to make East Middle go forward at the same time that Career and Tech was going forward through the traditional CIP mechanism. So that is a strong case, because we were situated just right with East Middle. The feasibility study had been done, design and development could start, that we were ready, shovel ready to go to get that money. That's a reason to do feasibility studies like Liberty, so that if the state does have a Built to Learn 2.0 in the future, we'd be poised to take advantage of that.
And that's one of the reasons I want to make sure we are poised, because I know I looked back a few years ago, we did not maximize our state dollars. We didn't have enough projects in line for whatever reason, like 15, 16, 17, it doesn't matter why, but we did not maximize it. We weren't putting out projects, and we need to at least maximize what they're giving, and then hopefully on some of these big projects, we will have an extra opportunity to get more funding for it. But we've got to be ready and know what those numbers are.
And our request, the superintendent's earlier statement about moving Century's Roof and Piney Ridge's HVAC up a year, our intent with that is to be able to maximize state aid and state funding in 28. If those projects aren't funded locally and designed and developed locally next year, we won't be eligible in 28 to maximize.
And I'd like to make
state
sure that we have enough in line that we would not lose out on that minimum.
Right. And that wouldn't, and Ted can correct me if he wishes, but that that's all within the 6-year plan. So moving them up a year doesn't change the 6-year.
No, but just be ready if there's an opportunity that we
Right.
can move something else up, because it's not wise to wait.
It also assumes that Freedom and Sykesville are removed from the plan. That's the other reason why you
And they're
remove
right on the
those.
bubble, and as you know, I've always said, I think we should be eligible for state funding to put something on the plan, because the eligibility requirements, I think, are good. And that at least gives us a rule of thumb. Now, we might not get it all, but just being eligible says, yes, we have a need. And if we had followed that for years, we would not be in the situation we're in today. Not your fault, but that, not following our own policy that we put in place a long time ago of being eligible is what let us do a project that wasn't eligible for anything. And it cost our entire budget for many, many years. That's why we're behind.
So I want to ask if any other members of the commissioners have any other questions or thoughts for CCPS? Anything from the 3 of you, 4 of you, 5 of you?
No, just thank
6
you
of
for
you.
the opportunity.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Up next, we will hear from,
Thank you. See you on the 23rd.
up next, we'll hear from Carroll County Community College. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good to see all of you.
We're happy to be here. And Patty's going to begin, and she's pulled up our slides, so Patty Davis.
Great. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Patty Davis, the Vice President of Administration at Carroll Community College. And today we are going to be discussing our 2 requests to the Commissioners for capital requests. The first is the the Foundation County Commissioner Technology Matching Fund, and the second is going to be the Trades Technology and Training Complex. I am going to discuss the technology matching grant, and then I'll step away, and Dr. Mintz will take over with 2 of our board members. So we'll just jump right in. So the Carroll Foundation and County Commissioners Matching Fund for Technology, I just want to start by framing it that what we're discussing is increased ask for the funding over what is currently being identified in the CIP fund plan. So the current matching grant is funded at $350,000 annually, beginning in fiscal year 2028 through 31, continuing the county's priority level of support. The college is requesting 2 adjustments to this. The first is to move it up a year to fiscal year 2027, and the second is to increase the amount to $500,000. I just want to mention that this really is not a change in direction, but is an adjustment in timing and in scale. It reflects our rising technology costs, including shorter replacement cycles, increased security, compliance, and demands, while continuing to leverage the county and the foundation's support for existing matching model. But to provide a context, it's helpful to briefly review the history of the County Foundation partnership. And as you see here, what is identified is, for clarity, these figures represent only the county's contribution, but it is a match, so the match is what the foundation is contributing. The county has consistently supported this program. As you can see, the different programs, there's 2. The third will be the fiscal year 28 to 31, but the request, again, is to move it forward 1 year and increase the amount by $500,000. The college request builds directly on this proven history. A $500,000 matching beginning in fiscal year 27 allows the program to respond to today's cost environment while preserving dollar-for-dollar leverage. And this matters because it demonstrates predictability, strong stewardship, and measurable results. So the request before you is an evolution of a model that is already proven and shows a delivered value. As we move forward, the next slide will speak to why the timing matters, not just the funding levels. So timely technology investment allows systems to be modernized proactively before reliability, security, or performance begin to decline, avoiding costly interim workarounds. A predictable investment is sound stewardship. It protects prior county investments as well as college investments. It prevents costs from being deferred into future years where they grow larger and harder to manage. and keeping pace is essential for compliance and workforce readiness. Our students must train on the current industry standard technology to meet employers' expectation, as well as supporting the county's economic priorities. So this leads directly to the operating budget slide that I am going to share next. And while the current U.S. inflation is approximately 2.4% year over year, it follows several years of elevated inflation that reset the college's cost base. The college's 2.38 projected operating budget for fiscal year 2027 allows us to maintain existing services, but it does not restore flexibility lost over prior years. And with approximately 80% of our budget tied to personnel costs, there is limited capacity to manage rising non-personnel costs. So again, technology costs continue to increase faster than inflation due to the items that I mentioned previously. But I do want to mention that the governor's fiscal year 27 proposed operating budget reflects a year-over-year increase in state aid of approximately $435,000, rather than the approximately $1.1 million, which was referenced in the meeting recommended budget presentation to the commissioners on Tuesday. The Budget Reconciliation Financing Act capped all the community colleges' state aid at 3%. So absent that cap, the college would have been due an additional $600,000. But because the funding will not be received into our operating budget, the flexibility is further constrained. So that's why we're asking for the additional capital investment matching and moving it up a year. This targeted capital investment through technology matching grant is critical and responsible to manage our technology costs without destabilizing our operating budgets. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mintz.
Stay here, though.
Okay.
So you can click for me.
Okay.
We have this all scripted for you. So, here's my passionate plea. There are moments when a vote is more than a line item, and there are moments when a vote truly becomes a message to the county. Today's request is not a request to build. It's rather a request to verify, to validate, and to exercise responsible stewardship over a county-owned asset, and therefore our request for this trades technology and training complex. The facilities program before you, as you know, is the required gateway that determines whether Carroll County is even eligible to receive state capital support for the trades technology and training complex. Without that first step, the county is disqualified from state funding and leaves approximately $90 million in state aid on the table, and no one wants that. A vote of no today does not preserve county resources. It results in forfeiting state funding that would otherwise be available to us. There's no guarantee that state funds will be available in the future, but they are available now. As president of Carroll Community College, it is my responsibility to look to the future, to keep the college relevant, to meet both the current and the emerging needs of our county residents, and to remain a strong steward of both fiscal and human resources. Nearly 10,000 students enroll at Carroll every year, and thousands more attend events and are positively impacted by our institution annually. And this decision affects all of them now and to the future. So let me be clear. I am fully confident that your staff can help you find a responsible way forward to afford this imperative. Recent county surpluses demonstrate that large investments can be planned and phased responsibly over time. And had recent surpluses been applied when this project was first proposed, the majority of the costs would already be behind us. And the college is not asking the county to do this alone, and I'll speak to the foundation even more in my closing comments. But the Carroll Community College Foundation has pledged $50,000 towards the $450,000 program cost, and is also prepared to launch a capital campaign to support other building costs. While there are clear limits to what the foundation can and should take on, this commitment demonstrates the confidence of prominent, influential stakeholders who believe this project must stop being postponed and start becoming our reality. As you can see, several of our supporters are here today, and I know that you know there are many, many more all across the county. So I would be negligent in my duties if I did not highlight the cumulative impact of continued delay of this project. As you know, the bulk of county funding would not occur until the years 2032 and 2033, providing ample time to bond and finance responsibly. We know this is a large project, there's no doubt about it, but the citizens of the county cannot take advantage of new program offerings because we lack the proper facility to provide them. Just as the county invests in facilities essential to delivering public services, this facility is essential to workforce readiness, community health, and economic stability. We believe it is well past time to provide the trades, technology, and training complex for the citizens of Carroll County. So the question before you is not whether to build. The question is whether this county, through our commissioners, will choose to step towards the future that we all deserve. And now I'd like to invite Ben Shepherd to come speak to you.
Good morning. My name is Ben Shepherd. I'm a trustee at the college, but I'm also the owner of Apple Plumbing, Heating, and Air here in Carroll County. And today I have some prepared remarks. I'd like to share my perspective as a local employer who deals with the skilled trades work shortage every day. We're constantly trying to hire qualified technicians who simply aren't there. While Carroll County's low unemployment is great for the community, it means that businesses like mine struggle to fill critical jobs in the trades. The demand for skilled technicians is real, and it continues to grow. Right now, there are times when we have to delay projects or we even lose out on work because we simply don't have enough qualified staff. It's frustrating to have to tell customers they'll have to wait when the work is there, but the workers are not. If the T3C helps produce more homegrown tradespeople, it means companies like mine can hire local, job-ready technicians instead of constantly searching outside of the county. I was also born and raised in Carroll County, and I'm a current county resident, and I want our young people, including my own children, to have opportunities here at home. Not every student is headed immediately to a four-year college, and those who are interested in the trades shouldn't have to leave the county just to learn the skill. With T3C, a high school graduate could move directly into an apprenticeship or trades program right here in the county without a long commute or moving away for training. At the same time, it's not just about the young people. We also retrain the workforce. At Apple, we currently have 3 employees who are retraining from other careers. One of those employees is a former police officer, our second of the such. In addition, we have 2 former members of the military who retrained with as technicians. One of them has since advanced through our company, is now our general manager. These are exactly the kinds of career opportunities that strong trades education programs can make possible. When we invest in local training, everyone benefits. Graduates from the T3 program should project to earn about $10,000 more than if they had only a high school diploma. But that benefit goes beyond just that number. I can attest that training in the Trade Center also shortens our training cycle, and it accelerates these technicians' wage growth. When our technicians gain skills faster, they move into higher paying positions sooner. When they earn more, they can afford to buy homes here in the county, eat at restaurants, shop on our main streets, and have a positive rippling effect throughout the county's economy. Supporting T3C isn't just about a new building. It's an investment in keeping Carroll a place where you can grow up, get your education, enter the workforce, and build a thriving life without having to leave. Investing in T3C strengthens the workforce that local businesses depend on. It helps small businesses grow, new businesses start, it helps workers build long-term careers, and it keeps the county economically strong. The reality is that this need for skilled trades has been here for a long time, and it's not going away. The workforce demand already exists, and it's only continuing to grow. So for me, it's not whether the county will need the kind of facility we're asking for. It's whether we invest now while we have the opportunity to do so thoughtfully and with outside support, or whether we wait until we're forced to solve a more severe problem in the future at a much higher cost. Before us today is an opportunity for a timely investment instead of forcing a future spend on a much overdue necessity. Thank you.
Mr.
Good
Greg
morning.
Collard.
Good morning, Commissioners. As always, it's great to see you. My life's work at Evapco and the Collard Foundation has been about strengthening communities, and education has played a key role. Last year, our foundation made grants totaling $7.6 million in education. So we've seen firsthand how a good education has positively impacted thousands of students and their communities. The proposed trades, technology, and training complex is exactly the transformational educational project that drives innovation, community advancement, and student success. the very heart of our foundation's mission. I am in a unique position as I see beautiful new buildings built for colleges across the state. And in fact, several of them have the Collard Foundation name on them, including Howard Community College and Towson University. 11 of the 16 Maryland community colleges have constructed new buildings in recent years because they have had the support from their respective counties, but not Carroll County and not the previous commissioners. The last major new academic facility at Carroll Community College was in 2010, 15 years ago. The state will not even consider funding a new building without the county's support. To me, it's unfathomable and shocking that the other counties have wholeheartedly supported their local community colleges, but not Carroll County. I referenced the importance of education. Another good reason to support this project is a high return on your investment. Analysis project about $8 in regional economic output for every $1 invested in this project. Few public initiatives that you're considering can boast that kind of payoff. That means more jobs created, higher incomes earned, more county revenue, and lower social costs as more people gain stable jobs. As a business person, doesn't that make sense? Like, absolutely. So supporting the trades and training complex is not just funding a building, it's investing in the people and the future of Carroll County. If you do this and the project proceeds, I will pledge a $1 million grant from the Collard Foundation to help kick off this critical project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I fully understand and deeply respect the weight of your responsibility, particularly as you evaluate what would be the largest capital project and bond in the county's history. And you are absolutely right. Not every good idea can be funded, and every decision carries trade-offs. But I would ask that we view this moment not simply as a cost to be managed, but as a generational investment in Carroll County's future. We recognize the scale of this project, but we also recognize the scale of the opportunity, and the reality is that the cost of inaction is even greater. Doing the right thing often requires investment, and this board has never allowed cost alone to stand in the way of serving the citizens of Carroll County. You have a talented budget office and professional staff who can help chart a responsible path forward if you charge them to do so. For many families, financing college is one of the hardest decisions they ever make, and yet it is also one of the most important. By approving this first phase, the feasibility study, you take a prudent, disciplined step that helps ensure future decisions are informed, strategic, and worthy of the trust and the public and worthy of the trust that the public places in all of us. The county is not being asked to carry this responsibility alone. Based on the preliminary work that we have been able to complete thus far, the Carroll County Foundation is prepared to make a meaningful contribution of $2 to $3 million for the Trades, Technology, and Training Complex. And that's on top of the surprise that I just got this morning of $1 million from the Collard Foundation. But this is on top of recent multi-million-dollar commitments that our foundation has made to make other projects happen, such as our turf field project, renovations to our healthcare, in our nursing building, technology modernization, and many other meaningful things that we do through the foundation, including the technology matching grant that we have before you today. So we want to proceed with a full feasibility study and come back to you with updated numbers over time, but know that you can count on that $2 to $3 million to begin with. We will also pursue national philanthropic and grant opportunities while honoring the reality that 70% of our foundation funds are restricted and must continue to support essential student needs, including scholarships, food security, and dual enrollment. But you have already seen by working with us how strategic partnerships help us meet urgent workforce needs now, as Mr. Shepherd referred to. And you know that we recently received federal support in $850,000 in an earmark supporting equipment and furnishings at our new lease trades facility. Our goal, of course, is the long-term, county-owned, purpose-built complex on our own campus to serve learners of all ages from all backgrounds and with varying abilities. The complex is a prime opportunity to support taking workforce training and development to a new level in the county, signifying a strong commitment to trades when it is identified as a high priority across the nation, across the state, and certainly across Carroll County. Please do not disadvantage the community because the college has worked hard to serve students and employers despite limited facilities and outdated technology. Please do not require us to pay rent that delivers no enduring public asset and limits our ability to expand real hands-on opportunities for students that only this permanent, purpose-built facility can provide. Like Mr. Collard, there are many other leaders across business, government, and the nonprofit sector that recognize this is the right decision and at the right time. The Trades Technology and Training Complex is not just about bricks and mortar. It's about building a stronger, more self-reliant Carroll County. Commissioners, our foundation and board members share your commitment to economic development, to opportunity, and to the well-being of our community. We are ready to do our part, and we respectfully ask you to continue our strong county-college foundation partnership so that our Carroll residents can learn, train, and thrive right here at home. Thank you for your leadership, your courage, and your enduring commitment to the future of Carroll County.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kyler, I believe you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. You guys have,
We looking?
I've got several questions, and because I'm virtual, I'll go ahead and ask them. You've already answered a few, and as usual, you're ahead of me. I was going to ask about other grants and what the foundation was kicked in. You answered that, and that was awesome. I wanted to mention how hard you've worked to find a leased facility, and that you have, so with that, thinking about that and what you're going to do there, how will this affect your operating costs moving forward? Are you adding programs, or are you just moving programs to the campus and making more room for them? Is it just current programs, or do you look? Will you add new? Will you need more staff? How will this affect your operating budget?
I think you're talking about the leased facility that we're proposing to open on Airport Drive. How will that impact
Yes.
things? Okay. So one of the limitations of that is that we already have waiting lists for the programs that we are going to be offering there. It is a mixture of some current programs that we offer, such as welding, and it is also an expansion for some new programs that we've never been able to offer before. So it's some of both. One of the things about the new space is that the maximum class size that we will be able to accommodate is 9 students. So even though we are expanding, it's limited expansion, right? Because we can only lease so much space and do so much there. So I hope that answers the question. We have built into ongoing operating cost the cost of the lease, which is a big expense. We are hoping that in 3 to 4 years we will be in the black for that and actually be making sufficient money through enrollment to more than offset the cost of the lease. But that we've always seen that as a short-term solution to meet immediate needs, not the long-term solution.
And then once this is built, will you add more and need more faculty, and will that increase your operating budget?
We should not need more faculty because overwhelmingly the faculty that we would hire would be part-time. So, and we would charge fees that would cover the cost of paying for those faculty. That's how we price our courses.
Thank you.
And I would just say, in actually some ways it would be a savings because now we have to pay someone to go to the leased facility to provide security, facility, technology, and so on, versus having it on our campus where we already have the staffing to do that. So I'm not saying there would be no new cost, but we don't see that as a big part of what we would need to do going forward.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Commissioner?
All right. So what is the amount you need to move forward to send it to MHEC?
450,000 minus the 50,000 from the foundation, so 400,000.
Okay. And then once that happens, you're going to send the whole project in to get approved by the Maryland Higher Education Commission.
Correct.
And then what?
Then if they
the
say
timeline?
this is a well-thought-out project, this is what we think you should be doing, you've supplied the rationale and so on, then we're given the green light to begin moving into the timeline. So the next outlay would be the $8 million. Back up here.
Fiscal year 30.
In fiscal year 30. And then the bulk of the funding would be needed in 3032 and 3033, and that's when we would actually be under construction.
So we'd know in a year about the approval of the whole
Correct.
project.
Maybe less than a year.
And what percentage would we think we'd get from MHEC?
52 to 53%.
And I noticed on these chart of all the other counties, they at least got, well, it looks like most of the time they got 50% exactly. And then
Yes.
I said 50. So that comes up of, as soon as we get approved, we'll know that.
Yes,
I think what we're trying to figure out is what would we need to program into the budget
correct.
now for the out years? And
Right.
and if things change, I mean, obviously, we've got all these, you heard before, all these school needs and modernizations, and we're behind. We're pretty big behind. So we're trying to put some of the stuff, make sure we have money out in the out years to do this. If something happened and we thought we had to pull back on it, is there a way it could be staged even further? Once we get the approval, if something would occur, could it be started on one part of it and then waited on the other part?
I don't believe that's normally how things move forward. What would happen is if cost were to go over, then the facility would be modified to stay within the commitment. But I don't think that we can take back that commitment.
I mean, there's always value engineering, and there are possibilities that we would work with county construction and the state to determine if we could move forward. But the intent is the one facility, because it has a centralized infrastructure for mechanical engineering, plumbing. So that is what's going to be most cost-effective for the county and the state to
So
move
both
forward.
parts of this are in one facility? Both-
Correct, it's
okay.
one facility.
I guess it's just I think some of the trepidation is just, it's one big pot of money for X number of years out. But I think if we would program that in, we'd have a good feel for it. And it's, the one thing I like about it is it's cost-effective way for people to be trained to go to work. And right now, kids are getting out of school and they can't get jobs, and things are changing. And this is the way we've got to be training these folks. We need them in our workforce, and we need these people to have jobs, and this is where jobs are. And I'm so glad to see that we're focusing on that versus, used to be everybody went to school and got a, liberal arts degree, that was the thing, you had to just get a degree, and that doesn't give you anything anymore. Now we're making this as an option, and it's a very outside-the-box thinking, and I appreciate that. And I hope you do go for some of these federal dollars. I also think that there's other monies that could get kicked in, and I know you guys are good at applying for all of that. So every little bit you can chip away, it helps us out. So I fully support the project and have for many years. I've been wanting to do this, so thank you. We just got to find a way to do it.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I do. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. Just real quick, going back to the technology matching grant, this is probably more of a question for Mr. Zaleski, but the request there and the increase, that hits our capital budget or operating plan? It would be part of the capital. Okay.
Well, I'm going to make a couple quick comments. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for coming in today. Also want to thank a number of people in the audience. I know there's been a variety of emails, text messages, and a few other ways people have reached out in the past week or so, and I appreciate all the involvement in that. As it always is in budget, it gets a little interesting time-wise, so sometimes we're not always as quick to respond as we'd like to, but I do read all your emails, and I do greatly appreciate all those emails that have been coming in on a variety of topics, but also very specifically this one. Mr. Callard, I want to thank you for this morning making that pledge. That clearly adds a little bit of an interesting piece to this. And, I think part of this comes down to, what is long-term vision, which is invaluable. 32 years ago, high schools and, higher education was looked at a little differently. And I think Unfortunately, the mindset back then, and I know it was quite very much that mindset when I was there in high school, was that you went to a four-year college. And, as was mentioned this morning, you lost a lot of time. We lost 3 decades of a lot of potential when it came to the trades. And now we're playing catch up. And that's always a problem, and it's a huge challenge. And I think in many cases, we can get close, but do we ever truly catch up to what we missed? So I greatly appreciate you all taking the time to come in and give us this valuable information this morning. And I thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Up next, we have the ARC. Morning, Don. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Well, always, I was going to say, always a pleasure to come and talk about the ARC. And I just want to begin first by thanking you for your continued support of our organization and the many organizations that support people with disabilities here in Carroll County. So what I want to talk about this morning is transportation. So what's happening at the ARC is we, support well over 200 people with disabilities, and a lot of them are, they're living longer, and mobility has become a big issue. And so we need to, make sure we have appropriate transportation for people that use wheelchairs especially. We have a wonderful partner in CTS, and we're glad that, you support them as well, because that is really critical to our overall operation model. But there's sometimes that they don't necessarily have the capacity to transport people with wheelchairs. There's a limitation on that, and especially on the evenings and weekends. And so we still need to maintain a fleet of vehicles to transport our folks. And so we need to purchase 2 vans, and we've secured 80% of the funding for those 2 vans through a grant. And so my request this morning is just simply to ask the county if you would consider matching the 20% that we need to have, which is $38,410, for next year. The ARC would continue to, manage all the operating costs, the insurance, the fuel, the maintenance. We're not asking for that, just to help us, with the purchase of those 2 vehicles, so that we can, better transport and have transportation for our folks that use wheelchairs.
Any questions or thoughts from the board?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Is there any opportunities, I think we spoke about this before, to use those vehicles to help out with our transportation issues that we have?
So we've looked into that. I know we've talked about that. One of the challenges that we're having is with our insurance company, and they specify that it needs to be for our folks. So that's something I just haven't been able to kind of get over that hump. And then with this particular grant that we're using, they're saying for people with disabilities. So if it was a person with a disability that we would be transporting, then that, could be a possibility. But if it's somebody that doesn't have a disability, again, I'm not sure how we would navigate around that requirement.
And that's not what, we haven't really come to any conclusion, but
Sure.
my goal is to try to get our services expanded for people who are disabled.
Right.
After 5 o'clock and in the evenings. And, it's a big deal. If there's some economies of scale to using things that are already there and partnerships, it may help. But it would first, my first priority is making sure we provide to those who are disabled and elderly that cannot drive.
Sure. So, yeah, so we, and then just, capacity of just, how that logistically would that work in terms of, when somebody, needed that and how they would call in and how we would manage that. We don't want to, have to come back and say, hey, we need to fund a person to just manage those calls to,
agree.
Designate those vans wherever they need to be. And then also getting over that insurance hump has been a bit of an issue, to be honest. Yeah.
I say, to-
So
people always talk about buses with just a couple people on them. We're trying to make sure they get
Right. So
filled
what
and
we're
used.
trying to do is just not make sure that our folks that we support have the necessary transportation so that we're not adding to that mix of what you're talking
We
about
appreciate
as
that.
well.
You do a great
Yeah.
job. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Collar, I believe you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a good presentation, and you got it down to $10, so very accurate. And as somebody that's managed vehicles for all of my life, I recognize Commissioner Krebs' question, but it would probably cost us more between the driver insurance and use of the vehicle than if we acquired vehicles like you are, and added them to our staff. Our overtime for drivers would be probably less than what we'd have to pay you for drivers. So I appreciate your answer. You were pretty accurate with it.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I appreciate all the hard work you all are doing over there without question, but wanted to ask, out of curiosity, so this is for 2 vans you're looking at right now. Are there any potential vehicles you'd be looking to replace in the next couple of years, or?
Well, actually, one of these is a replacement for something that we have that
Okay.
has, I don't know, 190,000 miles on it. So the maintenance on that is getting to be a bit much.
And then how many vehicles do you have in that fleet total?
So right now, we operate 40 vehicles, mostly vans, but we do have a limitation. Not all of them transport people with wheelchairs.
Sure, understood. I greatly appreciate that information. Thank you.
I have one more question. Right now, I guess the Senate budget has passed over to the House. How has that affected you yourself for the ARC? And then reducing the DDA budget?
It's keeping me up at night.
And do you know what the impact is yet?
Well, until it's finalized, I don't really have a specific, but I just know the way that it's trending, it's going to be a pretty significant cut to just the ARC and our service delivery. So, in the next couple weeks, I guess we'll know for sure, and then how they're choosing to implement those cuts. But, right off the bat, the 2% cut is quite a bit, and then how they're looking to modify some of the other services that we provide that are going to be cut back. It's going to be pretty significant.
Well, I see they added a little bit back in the Senate, but it was not significant.
It helped a little bit, but not, it moved the needle just slightly for us. But yeah, it's, to be honest, it's something I'm worried about.
It reminds me of a dime a drink. Told you it was never going to get there, right?
Right, I remember, yeah.
The very people we should be funding is the first on the chopping block.
I know,
Which is
I
very
know.
frustrating, but
It's-
thank you.
We didn't think we'd be back this year. We thought last year was enough, but, here we are. And then, we just, gosh, we don't want to be back next year. There's just such a fatigue with the budget, in general, but then also for people with disabilities. It's just, and I appreciate our legislator and our delegation have just been really champions. Talked to many of them, and they are incredibly supportive. But there's only so much they can do at this point. But it's worrisome.
Well, and thank you for everything that you do, Don. We really do appreciate it. Everybody at the ARC, for that matter. You really do help provide, a service that is crucially, central to the lives of, you said, 200 people just with the ARC, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Don.
Thank you.
Up next, we have the State's Attorney's Office. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So with me is Special Counsel Alan Culver, who you all know. I guess I've got some really great news up front, and that's that this will be the last time I appear before you asking for money. So there's that.
I'm not sure that's good news. I'm not sure I'm happy about that.
All right, so I do want to thank you all for the support that you've given to my office over my term. It's very much appreciated, not just by me, but all 57 of the people that work in our office.
Does this picture mean you're giving us money? I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
That's
No.
the savings that we saved from this year.
Exactly.
There was a former state's attorney who did give the county back
I
money.
remember those
that.
days. Yes, I
So the
remember
pro-
those
the-
days because I was sitting up there when that happened.
That's right. So the bar's high, the pressure's high. Sorry.
So I'm sure you all, of course, will recall the saga of the 10% increases that commissioner employees received in FY23. You all were kind enough during my first year, FY24, to give us 5 of that. And in FY26, you gave us another 2.5 of that. So we are 2.5% away from achieving parity. And of course, that's our request, and it's there's a rational basis for that we'll delve into over the course of our PowerPoint. We're also in desperate need of help in our litigation support unit, which is otherwise known as the Dream Team over there, because they do a fantastic job, but due to changes in the law from Annapolis, where the legislature has made like everything except first-degree murder expungible now, they are inundated with paperwork associated with changes to the law, and we're handing down, record numbers of indictments, and they have to handle all that paperwork in connection with the grand jury process. So they're overworked and need help. So without further ado, though, Alan's going to go through our PowerPoint.
So I'm just going to kind of walk you through, as Mr. Shoemaker indicated, our requests today are for a 2.5% salary increase, and that's above the projected 3.5 increase that the commissioners are kind enough to look at for the county across the board. And the position for litigation support, it's essentially a paralegal position. And Mr. Shoemaker kind of went through the history, but what I wanted to point out is the interesting thing is the reason that the commissioner's employees received that 10% salary increase in longevity was because there was an audit done by the county which indicated that there were issues in regards to retention and filling positions in the commissioner's employees section. And those are the exact same issues that we've been dealing with since 2022, and we'll talk about that a little more as we go on. So as far as our office currently, how it stands, we have 57 employees. 34 of those employees have less than 5 years of experience, and 20 of our 20 employees are under 34 years of age. And this is the first time that our office has been fully staffed. We say for more than a cup of coffee. There's been a couple times over the last 4 years where maybe for about 30 days or so we've been fully staffed. I know one time when that occurred, we were fully staffed, but we had an employee we knew that was already leaving in about a month or so. And so we have 8 employees with more than 20 years of experience, and many of those employees are going right towards retirement. So the 2.5% is requested for a couple different reasons. One, it would be something where that might assist in retaining these longtime employees for more a period of time, because obviously the longer they stay, if they get that increase, that will help with their pension. And we're trying to avoid the brain drain, and that's the problem we have right now. We have, instead of having a flat line, we kind of have a curve. We have, 8 employees with more than 20 years experience on one side, but then we have a significant number of employees with less than 5 years of experience. So that middle section with people 10 years of experience, things like that, we're kind of void in that section. And so the longer we can have these employees stick around with their vast experience, the better it is for our new employees to just kind of suck up the knowledge from these people. Because as everybody knows, when somebody has been around for 20 years and they leave, there's a vast amount of knowledge that's lost by an agency. And also it just goes back to fundamental fairness. Like I indicated, the reasons that the commissioner's employees received those original increases are the exact issues our office has also faced. So as far as 2025, our office served almost 9,000 victims. That was involving about 2,300 criminal cases. Those cases were not only trials, but as you know, criminal cases kind of never go away, so they come back for modifications, violations of probation, and even collateral attacks like post-conviction hearings. And those cases are still cases where the victims are involved, and we need to keep them updated as to what's going on. Our evidence review unit, that's the unit that handles our body-worn camera videos and in-car camera videos and surveillance videos. We currently have 9 employees in that unit, and they spend over 10,000 hours reviewing video footage, and that included over 14,000 body-worn camera videos and about 8,700 in-car camera videos. As far as our court hearings, we had a little under 1,800 cases that generated about a little under 8,700 hearings in circuit court. We had 84 juvenile cases that generated 411 hearings. And as far as district court, a little over 4,000 cases that generated about 7,700 hearings. So as far as our litigation support unit, what exactly they do, the best way to describe it is they handle the cases both pre-charging and post-trial and collateral issues. So they don't actually prep the cases for court. That's what our prosecution assistants do. They do prep our juvenile cases, so that's an exception. But as far as our district court cases and our circuit court cases, they're prepped by our prosecution assistants. But they do handle any duties related to grand jury, and they deal with district court and circuit court motions and the responses to any motions. They add charges to cases. As I indicated, they prep the juvenile cases. Department of Health filings have to do when someone is found not criminally responsible or not competent. Those cases can stick around for years. In fact, we just got a filing this week on a Department of Health case where a gentleman was found not criminally responsible from 2006. So somebody has to monitor these cases to make sure that when these people are on conditional releases and things of that nature, that we still know what's going on with the case. So they also handle warrants and extraditions, motions for court orders, and law enforcement investigative subpoenas. So those are requests from law enforcement when they're investigating cases, and they need things like records, business records, if they need records in regards to internet accounts or things of that nature. And you'll see we've seen a significant increase in these requests from law enforcement. The reason we have is a lot of it has to do with the number of scams that are going on. So, they get a report of a scam, and then law enforcement is trying to track back where these scams are created. So if there's an IP address that they can track, or if there's business records, if a victim sends money to a Cash App or something like that, they're looking for records to see if they can find out who the person is who's responsible for the scam. They also do any administrative duties in regards to reviewing of felony charges that have to be reviewed prior to indictment. They file pre-charge criminal investigations. Public Information Acts, our litigation support unit handles those. There's been an increase in those. And they deal with legal resources, including Westlaw and our law library. So as far as their increase, these are the areas where we've seen a significant increase. Expungements, as Mr. Shoemaker indicated, each year the Maryland General Assembly expands the expungement law to not only increase the number of crimes, the types of crimes that could be expunged, but they also change how quickly someone could get something expunged. So based on that, we've seen a significant number of increases in expungement petitions. As you can see at the bottom of the slide, there's something that's called certificates of compliances. So essentially what happens is when a case is expunged, the courts issue a certificate of compliance. That goes to our office. It also goes to the law enforcement agency that investigated the case that basically said, hey, this case has been expunged. You're now required to go back through your case and get rid of any documents you're not allowed to keep. So we originally, in 2024, there were 1,000 of those. Now, the law changed in October of 2024, where the certificate of, where basically what they did is they made certain cases automatically expunged. So if somebody's found not guilty, or if we null pros the case is automatically expunged. So previously, it was up to the individual, once that happened, to file for expungement. But essentially, they changed the law and said if somebody's found not guilty or the charges are dismissed, they don't need to file anything. It's automatically expunged. So that significantly increased the number of certificate of compliances that our office received. As you can see, it went from 1,000 in 2024 to 1,400 in 2025. But of that 1,000 in 2024, the law changed in October of 2024, and 357 of them happened after October of 2024. So, and then you can see there's been an increase in juvenile petitions as well. There's also been an increase in indictments, and the Public Information Act requests, you can see that they've already doubled from 2024 to 2025. And I will say that, I mean, some of those Public Information Act requests are fairly, you can complete them fairly quickly. If we don't have the records, it might take a half hour to an hour to complete. But then if we do have an old case file that somebody is entitled to information related to that old case file, we have to go through that old case file with a fine-tooth comb. We have to redact personal information. We have to figure out exactly what records they're entitled to. Our litigation support unit is currently working on a Public Information Act request, and we keep track of the hours because we're actually allowed to, after they get 2 hours free, but after that, they're required to pay for a Public Information Act request unless they qualify as indigent. So we keep track of the hours. And we currently have a Public Information Act request that maybe we're halfway through that litigation support has already spent 55 hours on. So they can be somewhat voluminous, and we're required to provide the information. Our extraditions have increased as well. And then, as you can see, the investigative court orders that I was talking about is related to scams and law enforcement investigations. So as far as fiscal responsibility, and Ms. Wyndham brought this up, so I'll tell you how we saved you some money. So we take the budget process very seriously. Myself, Mr. Shoemaker, and a couple people in our office, when the budget season begins, we sit down and we go through our budget line by line, and we say, hey, is there anywhere we can cut, or if we're asking for money, how much money do we have to ask for? So we kept our overtime requests the same as we did last year. We reduced our memberships and training by $10,000. And I want to explain this. This is money that we've received, I think, the last 2 budget sessions. The General Assembly created a committee that was looking at requiring attorneys to have CLEs, continual learning. And we thought if that ever came through, we were going to have to spend a lot more money on training. So that's why we got that $10,000 for the last 2 years. We did not spend it the last 2 years, so it's not money we spent. But we looked at it and said, you know what? This has been around for 2 years. We haven't spent this money. There's really no reason to request it another year, so we didn't request that $10,000 this year. We've also not requested any new vehicles or any additional furniture. We've continued to coordinate with the governor's office looking for grants. I know there was an additional grant that we applied for this year. And then our Regional Veterans Treatment Court that we've entered into. We've had 9 veterans enter into the Regional Veterans Treatment Court up to this point, and essentially that cost the county no money whatsoever. We're fortunate enough to be part of that, and there's enough organizations involved that we don't have to put out any resources. And also, We have not requested any longevity for the FY27, just the 2.5% increase. So as far as bang for your buck, this is a press release that the State Attorney's Office and the Sheriff's Office put out in the beginning of January. And essentially, it was touting the decrease in crime. So there was a 34% decrease by the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. Westminster Police had a 17% decrease, and the Maryland State Police had a 22% decrease. There was one homicide that was reported in 2025, and that homicide was actually a fatal overdose. We were able to charge the dealer, so that was the only official homicide we had in 2025. And so Mr. Shoemaker is going to talk about some of the notable cases we've had in 2025.
Yeah, real quick, I'll just highlight a few. State versus Samar Williams, he was a subsequent offender drug dealer, total sentence of 90 years, suspend all but 40. State versus Darius Bond, that was the fatal hit and run up in outside of Tawnytown. He got the maximum of 10 years for failure to remain charged, an additional 5 years for theft of the motor vehicle. State versus Kenneth Baines that Allen prosecuted, armed robbery at Sykesville Apartments, received a sentence of 35 years to serve. And State versus Ryan Hall, which just happened the other day, that was the Harford County Sheriff's Office employee. He pled to 2 counts of sex abuse of a minor, binding plea of 40 years of incarceration. So those are a few of the highlights. I guess the bottom line on all this is that, we're seeking the 2.5%, and we're asking for a position for our litigation support unit.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kyler, I believe you have a question?
Yes, back when the prior commissioners did this, I was opposed to that. They didn't include outside the building. I also was so naive that might have felt like it was too much. Our last term in DC did inflation that kind of took away everything we got. I value employees. Again, I've had a number of times the number of employees you're managing, and you have to treat them fairly to keep them. I'm going to argue that our 3.5% isn't enough. I know private companies that are doing 5%, and we don't have steps. We need to be not confused that COLAs on top of steps are smaller. So I think we need to argue that. This Ted or you guys, do you have a dollar amount for this 2.5%?
Yeah.
Number 3.
Yeah, Commissioner Kyler, for FY27, it essentially amounts to $150,000.
Okay, and then I need to admit, I did try to celebrate with Mike Stewart last night the fact that you will be in North Carolina this time next year. He wouldn't celebrate with me, so I don't know what that means, but I tried.
Appreciate that.
And what was the salary for the position that you're requesting for the litigation support unit?
It is with fringes and everything, and the one-time cost for technology and all that stuff, it's $98,230.
$98,230.
And that's including all benefits. So the
Yes.
salary is, or on our current pay scale, it's an SO7 position, so the salary would be anywhere from $53,540 up.
Commissioners, for all these, you have this information in your packages.
I have a question. Are you under the state pension plan, or what pension plan are they under?
We're on a county pension plan.
So the people that leave, what are the circumstances why people are leaving?
Well,
in terms of the folks that have leave who, that middle gap, They're people who aren't in the county long enough where it's like, hey, I've vested enough where it makes sense for me to stay for the pension, for the long term. They're the people who get poached by other agencies. The primary agency that our office has had problems with is the Attorney General's office. And I will say, it's not just Carroll County. They poach from Howard County State's Attorney's Office. They poach from Anne Arundel County State's Attorney's Office.
Baltimore County.
Everyone has lost positions to the Attorney General's office. They pay more than we do. They also allow their employees to work from home 3 days a week. They only required to come into the office for 2 days a week. And speaking from experience from people I know who have gone to the Attorney General's office, their workload is not as significant as our workloads. So that's the problem we faced with competition with the Attorney General's office.
I think we've lost 7 attorneys to the Attorney General's office, 7 out of 22 over the last
Since
4
2020.
years.
And they work home 3 days a week.
And the thing is, each year, the Attorney General goes before the General Assembly and asks for more people. I mean, he essentially added a whole unit just to sue the federal government. So, you know, they're always looking for more people. They're never filled.
That's why the state has a huge budget deficit
Yes.
and just hired 6,000 new people since Hogan left.
Yes.
Exactly.
And then it does put a burden on us.
Absolutely.
So they give up their county pension and then they start back into the state.
If they go to the Attorney General's office, yes, they start in at state pension, yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And last for agency hearings today, we have building construction.
They're great, by the way. I just want to say.
So you support whatever they're asking for?
Absolutely. As long as you don't take it from me.
Oh, wait, that was the next thing I was going to ask.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Brian Boki, Director of Public Works. I'm joined today by Eric Burdine, Deputy Director of Public Works, and Kaylee Halp, Division Manager for Building Construction. As Kaylee gets the slides ready here, I'll just give you a brief introduction. We're here to talk about a project development fund. Very interesting watching agency hearings this morning. You heard from Carroll County Public Schools, and you heard from the community college, both talking about feasibility studies. This kind of wraps everything what we've been going to present here in the next couple minutes about feasibility studies and their benefit and why it's been sort of a missing link for our department. These studies are critical for early programming needs, early decision-making, and ultimate project success at the end of the day. Not going to guarantee there's not going to be change orders, but you know, in our analysis and research, you know, looking through history, some of these change orders that we've been up against would have definitely been avoided if we had a little more of a in-depth feasibility study as we proceed on some of these larger projects. So with that, I'll hand it over to Kaylee.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I just wanted to start off, I realize this is second nature for me. I'm in the industry, but just wanted to kind of simplify everything for you guys so you can kind of understand how we get from, you know, having an idea about a building, getting all the way to construction and project closeout. So simplifying it very much so is planning, development, hire an engineer, build the building, close it out, we hand it over to facilities. The planning and development portion, as Brian alluded to, we see that in Carroll County Public Schools, K through 12. We also see that through MHEC, which is the community colleges. I came from the K through 12 world, being at Baltimore County Public Schools for 8 years, and then had a short stint at CCBC. So this process was kind of second nature to me, coming from where I came from. So coming here, I was a little surprised that we didn't already have something in place, but that's why we're here today. And another plug too for grant funding, meeting with user agencies through their requests for CIP projects. We are learning that there are grants out there available, but if you don't have a floor plan, you don't have a cost, you don't have any kind of research done in the background, you can't even apply for these grants. So there's definitely grant funding kind of sitting out there. Yep, I know, echoing.
Really excited.
So just kind of want to drill that home a little bit further. So diving into this planning and development phase, typically the way this happens is we look at a needs assessment. So it's the user agency pretty much telling us what they think they need, plus what they want. but mainly what they need. You're going into programming, so that is essentially like a courtroom is this large, a library stack area is this large, here are your adjacencies, here's the mechanical equipment you need, the electrical equipment you need, et cetera, et cetera. So really getting down to the nitty-gritty of every space within a building. And once you kind of put that together, you're able to then bring in a professional who's taking all that programming, taking your needs assessment, and providing you with a feasibility study. So if it's a new build, they're looking at a site for you, they're making sure it's a buildable site. If it's a renovation, they're telling you, yep, you have enough room to do this, or no, you don't, and here's how much it's gonna cost, and or the value engineering you're gonna need to take out because you can't fit in the space. So again, feasibility point is where you're bringing in that professional. Part of their team is a cost estimator. So they're bringing in a third-party professional cost estimator, which we don't have in Carroll County and in staff. And they're literally giving you everything tied up in a pretty bow, saying, this is how much it's gonna cost, this is how long it's gonna take, and then we're able to give that to you guys to say, here's exactly what we need and why. Currently, we're technically not doing these first 3 steps. We are meeting with user agencies, but it's 1 or 2 meetings of like, hey, I want this, I need this. Again, as I alluded to earlier, we are not professional estimators. We don't have a registered architect on staff. So yes, I can, the way we kind of, myself and Eric have put together estimates in the past is we're looking at square footage based on either existing spaces or looking at neighboring jurisdictions. You know, they just built a new 911 call center. It was 40,000 square feet. We'll go with that. And then really just looking at historical square footage costs. So luckily, recently, we know we have state's attorney, we have sheriff's office. We've got some other projects going where I already had a professional cost estimator on those on those teams. So I could pull a lot of that square footage data from there to get like real numbers this year, but we don't always have that. We don't always have a large project going on where we have that professional to lean on to truly give us accurate square footage costs. So because we're not doing these first couple steps of the planning and development currently, and I'm going to give you guys one example, but I could point to a lot of examples currently of we come to you guys with this, you know, I don't want to call it a shot in the dark, but a really good guess at what we think we need. We hire an architect and an engineer, and as soon as we get them on staff, they're like, whoa, slow the brakes. We need to dive into this deeper. So we're going backwards in the design process because they're saying, did you think about this? Did you think about that? This site isn't buildable. We can't fit the building where you want to fit the building, et cetera, et cetera. So we're having to go backwards to then go forwards again. So obviously at that point, we're dealing with outdated information. We're seeing cost increases because the project's just sitting, and those historical averages that I was using may not align anymore. So the one example I did just want to give you guys is Courtroom 6. So that was adopted in FY23. We put an estimate together for $2.4 million at 4,700 square feet. We were given $2.3 million as part of the FY24 budget. As soon as I came on board, I was like, well, this is the perfect example to kind of show how this should be done. So I hired an architect in 2025. They were able to put together 3 options for us, and very quickly realized that 4,700 square feet and $2.4 million was not enough. So they pretty much said, if you want to do what you need to do, the biggest concerns were sight lines for the jury box and this existing courtroom. The judge couldn't see them, the jury couldn't see the audience, and so all these different things needed to be taken care of. Also, security. How are you bringing in the defendants? How are the judges going from one place to another? You can't be walking through the jury room as a judge and or the public. So really looking at all of this, in a couple months, an architect was able to tell us, you need anywhere from 5,200 square feet to 6,700 square feet. And you're gonna need about $5.6 million. So in a little bit of time, just a couple months, again, like a budget cycle essentially, I was able to really see how much square footage we need, how much money we need. And again, we kind of did this cyclical thing where we're like, hey, we have money, let's get started, wait, put on the brakes, we don't really have what we need. So again, if we can fix this, I'm confident that we can kind of come to you guys with more solid numbers and hopefully just be in front of you once, ask for the money, and then we're moving into contract and doing what we need to do. So my proposed solution, as Brian said, is a project development fund. Again, this would align with industry standards. I did my homework. PG County, Montgomery County, Baltimore City, just from quick Googles, they already have a process like this where you're diving into the details of a project before you commit to a project. we would propose this coming out of building construction's operating budget, $50,000 to start. And I know one of the questions that we talked about was how do we pick these projects? We would mimic something similar to Land and Resource Management's priority process where they come to you guys. And I also saw other counties actually have an evaluation criteria. So I would work and help with the user agencies to kind of go through this evaluation criteria before they came to you to say, hey, can we dig a little bit deeper and look at the details of this project? So all in all, it would come down to you guys, but I would kind of help those user agencies understand, is it a true ask? Is it really necessary before we kind of dive in and hire the professionals? So obviously benefits, as I kind of already talked about, we're making a procedure. We currently have a procedure, but it's not a procedure. So this would help us do that and really just addressing all these issues that we're finding prior to us committing a large amount of money to a project. So like I said, if we can get this in place, get some professionals to help us get to a point where, you know, we're confident with the number we're giving you, we're confident with the square footage we're giving you, then we come to you once, ask you for the money, and we just go on our merry way and build a building. So that was all I had, if you guys had any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I mean, I think it's a fantastic idea, long coming.
Yes.
I still wonder, I mean, we want to be ready for this money, and we've left money on the table for many years. It's driven me crazy because we haven't been ready. But how do we know up front whether we can even put something in to begin with because we don't even know what the ballpark is?
So the intent of this would be $50,000. So with that amount of money, I would be able to look at one or two large capital projects. Because obviously too, like with the community college, you saw this morning, like $450,000 to do that. That's a whole different process that MHEC requires. It's part 1, part 2 program. You go through a whole bunch of stuff. I'm talking about hiring an architect and engineering team for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, depending on how large of a project it is. And they're looking at it under a microscope, but a much simplified process. So, you know, again, if we were 2 years earlier or 3 years earlier with Courtroom 6, it's like, okay, everyone agrees this is an issue. Here's the problems that they're having. You guys agree. Yes, let's look a little bit further. I'm spending that money to then say, this is exactly what we need. So it wouldn't be an approved capital project yet. It's almost like a year before it happens.
It wouldn't even be on the CIP.
Correct.
But it would be, how would we then determine that is something we'd like to see, maybe get on, but we want to get that information
Yeah,
first?
we would have to come up with some sort of priority process where you got, like, I know Chris Hines' group, the user agency comes to Chris Hine and comes to you all, kind of pushes their case to say, hey, this is why I want to be a priority project. We would do the same kind of thing of bringing you guys potential priority projects, whatever we want to call them. And I would say, okay, we're going to dive deeper in this year with these 2 projects or these 3 projects.
This isn't for schools, it's just for county
Correct, just county
projects.
buildings. Yep.
And Commissioner, I'll just add on to that. I think our staff does do a fairly good job with cost estimates just when we go through the capital project with the budget office. So agencies submit their capital requests. We do use everything we have at our disposal to get a ballpark, like you were asking. Now, is it going to be $5 million or $15 million? We do have those abilities. I think it's when it's really getting down into some of the details. Ted mentioned, don't do a feasibility study if you're not going to really have any intention of doing the project. I think there has to be some sort of inclination of, the county needs this, and we need to kind of peel back the onion a little bit. So, all right, yes, we know the ballpark. Yes, we know the needs there. Let's get some more details on this before we really commit in the budget to a larger project.
I know we got some bunch of wish list requests from agencies. That was just what it was. It didn't really have any dollars to it. I'm just trying to figure out when in that process we would determine whether something would rise to the top. And does this include roads, or is this just for buildings?
Just buildings, just general government. So at every August timeframe, I do get user agency requests for capital projects. So at that time, we have a list of everyone doing everything small, like Mount Airy Senior Center, wanting a partition. I could use these funds to look and hire a structural engineer and be like, is this even possible? To all the way of, we need a new 911 call center. So I'm getting all of those. User agencies, again, are putting like, oh, we think we need this much square footage, or we think we need this. And then I'm taking that and using my data that I have to put a cost to it, and that's shared with budget. So in the fall of every year, we have at least a starting point and a list that we could easily bring to you guys and say, is there anything on this list you want to look further at?
Or you mentioned the library at Mount Airy. I was just down there last week. So do they tell you what it is they're trying to accomplish, and maybe they
Yes.
they give you other suggestions, say, hey, how about this or that?
Yep. Yep. And like I said, it's our needs assessment is a 1 or 2 hour meeting where they're just like, hey, Frederick County just built a 911 call center. We need one too. And so it's like, I'm doing that research, trying to figure out how big was it? What did they have included in that? Same kind of thing. But sometimes it is just something as simple as like, I want a folding partition or I want a roof on this carport. And again, it's like, yeah, I can guess how much that costs, but until we have a professional on board, we don't really know if it's truly feasible.
And then where in that process will we determine if we had capacity somewhere else that we could use? Like we have another building that we could put, is that somewhere?
Again, that could be all part of the feasibility study. An architect, professional architect, putting them on board, we can give them access to all of our drawings, all of our buildings, and say, if you guys have a better idea, please give it to us, because that's what they're.
I mean, we've
that's what
moved
they're there
people
for.
around a lot in the different buildings because it suited them better, but it's nice to know what the big picture is.
Yes. Yep.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I now need a motion to reassess for 10 minutes and then reconvene in open session.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are in recess. And we are back in open session. We're going to kick it right off with Priority Carroll and kick it over to Commissioner Kyler.
Thank you. I went to MML at the flood zone, and it's always great to see the jurisdictions in Carroll County and hear their opinions and also the individual contact by being there. And it's always good to be at flood zone for whatever reason. What a great staff and great ownership. Friday, I was at Manchester Fire Department with the chief and I don't know, 30, 40 people probably. Lieutenant Anthony Cavanaugh saved that little girl. They called 911, and the mom that you see partially in the background, she wasn't patient. I think her husband drove her to the fire hall, and Lieutenant Cavanaugh was leaving to go to follow the 911 call and saw her and stopped. And at that point in time, the little girl was not breathing, and he saved her. And there's Channel 2 interviewing them. It was just a great event, and I was probably talking. I don't know. I wasn't smiling. And again, there's Lieutenant Cavanaugh and the mom and the daughter, and it was just awesome. And I told them, his family, he's Junior Davidson's grandson. I went to basic training in AIT with his great uncle, who's passed. I'm sorry. But a great family of firefighters like Carroll County has, great volunteers, great paid people, and they seem to be every place. And that family has, I know, some at Reese, some at other fire stations, and of course, Lieutenant Cavanaugh at Manchester. And it's awesome. I don't know what else to say. Went to the ribbon cutting at the Cove. That was great. Secretary Day was there and spoke, and we were all cold, but it was a good event, and you can see how many people came out for it. It's just awesome. Another shining example of what Carroll County does for people and how many people care about it. And there's Celine that does a great job, and Secretary Day, who was mayor of Salisbury before he was secretary, and so hopefully we can keep bugging him about local control. Little commercial there. Carroll Community College trustees, that they were yesterday. I was driving to Cleveland, so I could not be there. I apologize for missing it. They did a great presentation this morning, and I would have asked some of my questions last night if I'd have been there, but just a great group and great trustees, and two of them were sitting there with the president, and it's amazing, Color in particular, how much of Carroll County, much less other jurisdictions, he touches, or that foundation touches, his father's legacy. It's just awesome. And then the retirements today. We got great employees. I know a couple are retiring now. Like a lot of industries, I get very concerned about our aging employees and how soon they're going to leave, and how hard it is to replace them. And I just, like I say, I value the employees. Staff does so much, and like I think I've said before, I always told them in construction, if you guys do your job, you make me look good, my job's easy. If you guys don't do your job, my job's impossible. It's hard to do it. So thank you, staff, and congratulations, retirees. I know it's a couple other in the building this week too. And thank you for your service, and I fully understand. And the only thing I want to say is stay busy. I told a gentleman earlier this week in the hallway. Stay busy. You know, I always said I'll retire when I'm too busy to work, and commissioner job made that happen. So thank you. I'm done.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. The rest of us are going to truncate our priority Carol remarks in the interest of time, but it was requested that I say something very briefly about PSEG and the ongoing situation with the power line. So currently, PSEG is attempting to set a target date for the end of the Public Service Commission proceedings with the filing of a motion filing of their most recent motion. PSEG wants to shorten the process to benefit themselves. It means less time for the county, for New Windsor, for groups and organizations, and most importantly, for citizens to be able to engage in this process in a fair and constructive way, being able to make points, filing motions, counter motions, asking questions, and seeking legal recourse. The commissioners decided unanimously that we would support a counter motion made by Stop MPRP Incorporated opposing PSEG's desire to set a target end date. And secondly, PSEG is continuing their surveys of property for the power lines. Word has gotten back to us as commissioners that those representing PSEG in the surveying are, and there's no other way to put this, they're lying about how access was granted to the properties in question. Remember that PSEG dragged citizens to court to force access to their property, whereas now those same citizens are being told that government agencies outside of the courts have given permission for this to happen, as if the court proceedings never did. Now, why that's going on, we're attempting to get to the bottom of. So if your properties have been slated for surveying, remember to remain skeptical. And if anything doesn't sound right, make sure to contact Stop MPRP Incorporated. Make sure to contact us. Let us know so that we, in turn, can look into what is occurring. You know, we all remain as committed against the power lines today as we did on day one, and we will continue to remain committed against them. And that's on behalf of myself and my colleagues up here.
Thank you.
So now we will move into a retirement for Ms. Patty
I've
Schaefer.
got
I'm
priority.
sorry, I apologize. Yes, Commissioner.
You want to
Go ahead. No, I don't have my.
do my one quick priority, Carol, since we're doing it. In addition to the things that were already said, which I think were wonderful, it was a wonderful week of seeing the Cove project done, and also, as you said, attending MML. I went and saw the Humane Society. I think it's one of my last visits that I have to do. And I really did not appreciate the full scope of work that they do for our animal. They're our animal control. By law, we have to have animal control agency, and they're a nonprofit that we sort of partner with, and great partnership. They had lots of volunteers up there, but they do licensing. They spay neuter. They have the spay neuter program, and they also have an on-site vet, which is very helpful so that they can get that stuff done quickly. They also take care of neglected animals. I mean, a lot of times people abandon their animals. They just leave them somewhere. They might be in somewhere for days and days. They're starving. They're sick. So they bring them in, and they actually foster those animals as well. And it's pretty. You don't think about that. It's really sad that people just leave their animals. But the county partnered with them last year on a couple projects that really were helpful. They have a cat room where you can go in and people come and volunteer so the cats can get familiarized, because many of these are feral cats. They've been out in fields, but they want to try to get them more domesticated. So they have a room with volunteers so they get used to being around people. And we did another project last year with their air conditioning of this certain room, which has a bunch of dogs they were substandard, I guess, facilities, and now they have nice crates, and it's climate controlled because it gets really hot when you got a lot of dogs in one room. So the county has partnered with them on some of these capital projects. They also take care of, people call them often for wild animals. They don't do wild animals. The Department of Natural Resources is supposed to do that. That doesn't mean people don't still call them up for it. But the scope and the breadth of what they do for our county, we just sort of take for granted that you call them up, and they're there. And a lot of their money is raised through the nonprofit organization from donations. So they do a great service to us, and I think they do more than the contract calls for, because they love these animals and they're not going to turn them away. So it was very interesting to actually see where they are. It's a beautiful site. It's an old landfill, I think, but it's absolutely beautiful back there. So that was an interesting visit for all you dogs, cats, and pet lovers.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Guerin?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. The Guerin family has got one of those dogs that was previously there. We kind of kidded ourselves because we said we would just foster him, and we knew right away he was never going to leave, and so we named him Foster. That's what he's a very happy dog. So, all right, speaking of retirements, we do have retirement for Miss Patty Schaefer. She's going to be leaving us, and she's going to be missed. the Board of Carroll County Commissioners would like to recognize and celebrate your 21 years in public service within the Carroll County government. Development Review has been your home within the county for the past 14 years. You have defined and redefined the position of Development Review Assistant, establishing yourself as an indispensable specialist in the division. Your commitment to excellence, dedication to high standards, and passion for precision have been an asset and inspirational. Throughout your tenure, you have witnessed and adapted to numerous changes, from advancements in technology to shifts in leadership. Through it all, you have embraced challenges, shown perseverance, and supported your team as well as the department's visions and goals. We wish you all the best, a long, healthy, and happy retirement. So I know you're listening, Patty, and all your coworkers are as well, and we are going to miss you. And congratulations.
Congratulations indeed.
Yes, indeed.
And Commissioner Gordon, I believe you have a National Agriculture Day
I
proclamation.
do. If anybody'd like to come up.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. We have a small but mighty team here from Carroll County Economic Development. We appreciate your time this morning as we are here to celebrate National Ag Day. It's actually next week. We're a little early, but if you know anything about economic development, we like to start to celebrate early and often. So I'm Chris Weinbrenner. I do marketing and special projects for economic development, and I'd like to turn this over to Diana Hare, who is our Ag Development Specialist.
Good morning, Commissioners. Grateful for another opportunity to celebrate agriculture with you today. So the theme for this year's National Ag Day is celebrating 250 years of progress. And I would like to start by introducing two guests that are joining us today. So we have Mr. Gary Dell representing the Carroll County Farm Bureau and Ms. Jane Sewell representing the Carroll County Farm Museum. Because ultimately a celebration of progress is a celebration of the women and men of agriculture whose ingenuity, diversity, and perseverance drives and fosters all of that progress. So before I wrap things up and you read the proclamation, would either of you like to say anything?
I'm just proud to be here, and the Farm Museum does so much. Really, the staff there is so committed to education and so forth with the history of agriculture in the county and our museum and all the visitors that we have. So thank you very much.
I will say thank you all for your support, from the Farm Bureau Board to you all with the MSRP issues or the PSEG issues. Your support in ag land preservation has been tremendous, and I actually was very fortunate to have a group from Michigan come in this week, and we talked about, they have a pretty good ag preservation program too, and they were actually extremely impressed with the amount of acres that just in our county that we have been able to preserve. So please keep your support in there for that, and just thank you for all your support. We appreciate it very much.
Truly appreciate all the hard work you do as well, and as well as all the other farmers. I mean, we're very blessed to have the community we have. And to your point about the power lines, I know some people will argue that, it doesn't affect all of us, but it does affect all of us in this county. It's why when that all started the other year, you saw everyone, whether it was generational farmers or people that lived in a cul-de-sac, showing up, because it potentially will affect greatly our way of life. And this is potentially round one of that. But leaving that aside, I do truly appreciate all your hard work and dedication, and everyone else at farms in Carroll County. So with that, I'm going to read the proclamation. So we have a proclamation for National Agriculture Day, March 24th, 2026. Whereas the Agriculture Council of America, ACA, celebrates March 24th, 2026 as National Agriculture Day with the theme of Agriculture Together We Grow, celebrating 250 years of progress in agriculture. And Carroll County boasts 1,180 farms with a total market value of over $138 million in agricultural commodities, including $86 million in crop sales, $24 million in milk sales, and $46 million in grain sales, according to the census of 2022. Carroll County actively supports its agricultural and agritourism communities with many resources, including carrollgrown.org and a local producer list that assists with job creation, stimulation of the local economy, and preservation of community integrity. And Carroll County leads Maryland in the preservation of agricultural land, safeguarding over 80,000 acres, making it one of the top preserved counties in the nation. The American farmer is a national symbol of strength and moral fiber, demonstrating ingenuity in prosperous times and perseverance during hardships, while providing high-quality agricultural goods and products to community, the state, and our nation and the world. Agriculture supplies nearly everything we eat, use, wear, offering unique opportunities for learning, stewardship, and recreation. And farmers and agricultural workers in America safeguard the land through sustainable practices, ensuring the health and safety of animals, plants, and people. They provide a safe, abundant food supply and facilitate economic development in both rural and urban areas. And National Agriculture Day is a great opportunity to recognize the essential value of farmers and America's farm family. On National Agriculture Day, we invite everyone to unite and celebrate the role that agriculture plays in each of our lives. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Carroll County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim March 24th, 2026 as National Agriculture Day, and we recognize and celebrate 250 years of progress and innovation in agriculture adopted this 19th day of March 2026. Signed, the Board of Carroll County Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Just real quick,
Yes.
as we enter into a new season of agriculture, a new season of growing, we want to encourage you to look for ways to support our local farms and farmers. And we've tried to make that easier by just asking you to keep your ears and your eyes open. So keep your ears and your eyes open for TV, radio spots, social media, articles, and other zany things that I get asked to do that will show you opportunities to support our local farms. And most importantly, be prepared to strap on your tennis shoes and lather on your sunscreen when you do the Carroll County Agritourism Passport, which has been renewed for 2026. And there are new locations, new prizes, and a new digital aspect, a new digital option that we're pretty excited about through Let's Rally. So stay tuned. I think the link is carrollgrown.org/Agritourism Passport 2026. So all that information will be fully fleshed out there by the end of March, most likely.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Do a photo? Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's do it.
Stay up here, or?
I think we'll go down. Go down. Yeah, I think we can go down for this one. All right, we can do that. There's enough room for us.
And while you're moving up for the photo, I am at NCAA wrestling, and I've watched many Dells wrestle, including the one there today. And I'd have to say, Jane, I haven't seen you wrestle, but I think I'm afraid of you.
Thank you.
They heard you.
It's all good. Are we gonna do it? We never could get a date.
We're still waiting.
Oh.
This might be lunch. Is there food?
It's not food, but they grow sunflowers.
Oh, I thought it was candy.
Oh, really?
Try one.
Okay.
Sounds great.
All right, up next, we are very grateful to have Pam joining us virtually for our legislative update for the week. Pam?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is the final days leading up to crossover, which is one of the busiest times of session aside from right before Sine Die. And I've been in touch with the delegation and learned a few things that are particularly interesting about what we expect to happen and things that have been happening. In particular, one of the things that I want to make sure you're all up to date on is the deer hunting issue. It's according to Delegate Boucher yesterday, we're expecting that Delegate Boyce's bill, the one that we've talked to you about several times through session that kind of addresses things more broadly and not exactly the way the intended legislation from last year was postured, is looking like it's going to move forward. And they are going to wrap the bill that Delegate Boucher, I believe, has introduced into that, according to him. And I've asked, and I've not yet received a response, but I'm going to follow up and see what I can learn to make sure that we have every opportunity to have an amendment for the one-line bill that we wanted to have introduced. I'm hoping they'd be amenable to that, given that they're looking at this holistically. So I'll keep you posted, but it is looking like that issue may move forward at this point. So that is a good
And
sign.
let me, before you keep going, on that particular issue, the Boyce bill actually would put us backwards if it makes us be involved in that. So the ones that already have more expansion of time, her thing limits it to 10:30, hunting, and then you come back at 5 o'clock. Ours right now, you can go the whole day. So I just want to make sure that our local bill that we currently have in place for years is not usurped by that. It's just that would make it additional. So just make sure, read it and see what it says. But we want to keep what we have, which is definitely better than what that is.
So I will read it, and if it appears that it would take us back, would you like me to write a letter asking?
What we need to do, just check it out and see if it, currently, other people have whole day of hunting for those Sundays. We can do it all day long. You wake up and you can go, and you can go all night. This would limit it up until 10:30 in the morning, and then you could come back at 5. Well, most hunters aren't going to be looking at their watch, so we just want to keep what we have at least, and then we'd like to add the other weeks on if possible. But we certainly don't want to go backwards, because then it'd be very difficult for hunters to have to leave at 10:30 in the morning. So just make sure it doesn't usurp what we already have in place, or replace what we have in place.
Yes, I will double check that, and then we'll determine how you want me to proceed if we learn that that's the case.
Is it really 5 o'clock?
Another issue that I sent you an email about yesterday, and if you haven't responded, would appreciate a response, is just letting you know where Mason's Law is headed. It's looking like it's moving, but I'm aware also that there are different issues to consider and make sure that we are looking at closely. There's my understanding, and I don't have specific data, but from talking to a number of people, is that it's complicated how to implement the bill, and that there's a significant expense, and that there may not be a full accounting of that, but that obviously this was a very upsetting situation that led to the introduction of the bill, so we want to recognize that as well. So if you have questions or want to talk about that separately, let me know, but I just wanted to raise that for awareness and consideration so that we can touch base following session, hopefully later today, about that issue. The bond bill hearing took place this week in the House, so we're looking like that's smooth sailing from both sides for our bond request this year. The unpaid property tax bill is kind of where it's been, but it has moved forward, at least in the Senate at the moment. So I'm following up again with the delegation today. I followed up once earlier in the week just to see if we can get this moved in the House side as well, which would make it ideal for moving things forward. I have not seen yet anything happening with the District Planning Commission, so I'm going to follow up and see where that stands as well with the committee, if they have any questions on that issue, and I will certainly follow up with you, Commissioner Krebs, if anything comes up on that specific issue. The budget bill has passed and is moving to cross the aisle, which we expected, same with the BRFA. It's looking that the Senate version did not accept the DLS recommendation for the 100% cost shift for teacher pensions, which is one of the major things that we were looking at. So that was helpful. So we'll see where that lands. I'm just looking through my notes for some of the bigger issues. I have to double check this morning, which I have not had the opportunity to do, but I was told by Senator Reedy, I believe, that the Carroll County Deputies bill was coming to the floor. So that may have moved forward since yesterday. And I will keep you posted, but it looks like that is moving. A lot of the other bills that we weighed in on and are looking at for power and transmission lines have not moved, but there is a bigger bill that was wrapped into one that is looking like it's gaining traction, and you've probably read about it in the news and the headlines. And my understanding is there's very little that can be done at this point that this bill is likely to move and pass. But if we have any specific points that you'd like me to make sure that we're relaying or weighing in on, there could be a potential for amendments at some point. But the goal of this bill was to wrap a lot of different issues into one, and it was done pretty quickly and late in the session as an emergency measure. The distillery bill has not moved yet, so I'm also hoping to see if that moves before crossover. I did reach out to the delegation earlier this week, offering support in any way that would help, specifically for the conversations that they've been having. If there were pointed contacts that they wanted me to make on behalf of anything that would impact Carroll County, and particularly the bills that we've been monitoring most closely. They've not yet come back and said they needed anything, but I'm going to continue to follow up all week because I know they're busy, as they're the ones kind of in the behind the scenes conversations and can let us know if there's anything else that would actually help kind of move the needle forward or stop something that we don't want to happen. I know there's a number of bills that you've asked me about, and I'm going to send you individual responses between today and tomorrow on all of those bills so that you know where they stand and what's going on. And I'm looking to see, I don't think there's anything else that's one of our big issues that I haven't touched on yet, but certainly let me know if I've missed anything. But that is my major update for the day. Next week, we'll have more information on where everything stands post crossover, which will be very telling because if something hasn't moved, it's dead, and it'll allow us to really focus efforts on ensuring that the opposite chamber adopts things the way you intend, and if there are any disagreements, that we work with the conference committees to try to merge those ideas at this point. So things start to move really fast, and sometimes you'll see that my updates might be behind where something happened because it's happening as we're talking at this point, but they're in session all day and I'm listening and watching constantly, and there's a lot of really great discussion and debate. But at this point, unfortunately, it's really looking like there's not much great news to report in terms of like the fiscal situation, which I know our whole budget department is on top of, but I am happy that the cost shift was not sent over from the DLS recommendation for the teacher pension, because that one was one of the big ones that we were concerned
Did you
about.
say the whole shift wasn't, or partial? You just said didn't accept the full pension shift. What exactly did they accept?
I will double check, but I believe it was just the 50%.
What was recommended by DLS?
They recommended 100% shift.
So the 50%.
Not what the governor proposed.
So they kept what the governor proposed, or did they lower that?
I believe they kept it. I will double check the
Then that
figure and
wasn't,
confirm.
so the DLS recommendation was months ago. So what was put in the governor's bill is still the same. They kept it. They didn't change what was in the governor's bill.
That's what I recall, yes.
Because that makes a big difference, because you said the Senate didn't accept the full pension shift. So that meant that we're going from the governor's bill, from the recommended piece of legislation, not what DLS
Right.
suggested. So there's no change. They kept it.
That's what we were concerned about. We didn't want them to accept it.
But they did accept it. I thought you said they didn't accept it.
No, we didn't want them to do what DLS was recommending.
Okay, well, the governor's bill did not do that. And they would never have upped it. They would have never made it, I don't think. It'd be nice to know if they kept exactly, that would keep it status quo for what we're budgeting for. So it'd be nice to find that out, and the same with the community colleges and who else was going to get shifted. A little bit.
I'll send you a list of where all of that stands.
Just gives us an idea, and I think the
Library.
the library, and then also the Department of Assessment and Taxation, I think they were going to shift more of their costs to us. Those are just 4 things that affected us. The one thing I want to correct that I said wrong a minute ago, on the hunting bill, on the Boyce bill, it's not 5 o'clock, because as Commissioner Guerin pointed out, it's dark. It would be, her bill limits on those Sundays to 10:30 in the morning. You go from morning until 10:30, and then you have to stop hunting. And then you'd have to come back at 3 o'clock. I said 5 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock. That would take us backwards, because right now we're allowed the whole day on those days. So I just want to make that clear, that bill would help other counties that have none of it at all, and they would be involved in that. They're trying to make it consistent, but it would take us in Frederick County backwards because we already have all day. So we don't want to be a part of that. We want to say separate. We just want to add ourselves as we are for the number of weeks.
Sure, I understand.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Pam, anything else?
No, not at this time.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Up next on our agenda, we have grant approval to submit application and acceptance of award for FY 2027 jurisdictional family services.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioners. My name's Nathan Hoyle. I'm from the Family Law Administration.
Yeah, please be
Okay,
seated. I
sorry.
promise this isn't court. You're welcome.
Court habits die hard on that one. So, as I said, I'm the Family Law Administrator for the Circuit Court. I'm here today asking the Commissioners to approve our application for the FY27 Jurisdictional Family Services Grant. And then if the award were to be granted, then to allow acceptance of that grant. Our grant is a year-to-year grant. Every year we have to apply to receive a grant to fund our family law administration here at the court. There's a rule, Maryland Rule 16204 that governs those mandates. And then the administrative office of the court supports those offices through these grants. We use that grant money to provide services to the courts, litigation, and attorneys in matters relating to families and children. Through our office, we coordinate or administrate services for mediation, visitation services, custody evaluations, psychological evaluations, guardianships, our family law clinic. A lot of the walk-in services that occur at the courthouse come through our office. But we use those funds, support 6 employees of the Family Law Administration to provide those services. This year, our requested grant amount that we are requesting, that we would like to request from the Administrative Office of the Court is $839,428.65. It's pretty consistent with last year's. They did ask us to build in potential for if the AOC were to grant raises under the grant, because we have to follow their grant structure for any potential raises. So we did include that in the grant amounts, but if the AOC doesn't grant those, then we would not be doing those increases. This is all without a county contribution, so this is completely through funded by that grant.
Any questions or motions by the board?
I move the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of the application for the FY 2027 Jurisdictional Family Services Grant and accept the award.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We are unanimous. Thank you very much. Up next, we have grant approval to submit application and acceptance of award for the FY 2027 Mediation and Conflict Resolution Office for Alternative Dispute Resolution.
All right, similarly, this grant is, as it says, for mediation and conflict resolution in the courts. It supports a single employee who acts as a full-time alternative dispute resolution person for the courts. They're providing day of court mediation for family law and other cases, as well as working with the Orphans Court and providing mediations for some of their cases. We use some of those funds to provide trainings for the mediation community to make sure that when we are referring mediations out, we're providing quality mediation to the people that we're referring those mediations for. Supplies for that ADR practitioner and potential training for that as well. We also do have a part of our grant that provides funds for paying an additional mediator to help provide mediation in SINA cases. Usually we do those as a co-mediation model, so that will usually either be our ADR practitioner and myself, or sometimes we'll work with mediators from the local community to provide those mediations. But the majority of this grant is going towards that staff member and that full-time position. We are requesting for the FY27 grant in the amount of $96,606.41. It similarly contained a 3 potential increases guided by the AOC's recommendation on that. But if they don't grant those, then of course we don't do it on our end as well. It is also without contribution from the county to continue that position.
Any questions or actions by the board?
I move the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of the application, the FY 2027 Macros Court ADR Grant application, and accept the award.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Commissioners, you all have a great day.
You too.
Thank you very much, and I love your consistent county contribution.
Up next, approval to purchase portable radios and accessories for the Department of Emergency Management and Communications.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
The Office of Procurement in cooperation with the Department of Emergency Management and Communications requests your approval to purchase portable radios and accessories from Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $616,705.80. This purchase will be made utilizing the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments Contract 21-069. This amount is approved in the FY26 budget.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
Today with me, I have Emergency Communications Manager Ashley Bergen. We also have Colonel Stem from the Detention Center here, in case you have any technical questions. The reason that we're here and making this purchase today, or requesting to make the purchase today, is that the portable radios that are currently in use at the Detention Center have been in use for many, many years. They were part of the first batch that were purchased back in around the 2015-2016 timeframe, when we went from an analog system to a completely digital P25 system. They've reached the end of their operational life cycle. They're not in support anymore from Motorola, and they're experiencing some operational issues as well. So this purchase would provide 114 new portable radios and the appropriate associated accessories for detention center operations. And I do want to point out there is one typo in the briefing paper in the staff recommended motion. It should be portable radios, not mobile radios. I apologize that we didn't catch that. We're happy to answer any specific questions. This is part of a planned replacement schedule that we've worked and developed along with budget.
Any questions or actions from the board?
I move the Board of Commissioners approve the purchase of portable radios and accessories from Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $616,705.80.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, spending authority for Prime Care Medical Incorporated from the Sheriff's Office. Vicki, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Board of Commissioners.
The Office of Procurement in cooperation with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office requests your approval to spend up to but not to exceed $85,492.28 to Prime Care Medical, Inc. for catastrophic billing and related medical expenses incurred through January 2026 for Carroll County Detention Center incarcerated individuals for the current contract year. The funds are approved in the FY26 budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. So we're before you to ask for spending authority to pay for these costs. Our contract year every year includes a threshold for so much for expenses that are related as they occur during the year, such as hospital bills, medical bills, other things that come up. So we're at the point then, as part of the agreement, where we then get the invoices for those now once we've reached that threshold. So we're at that point in the contract year.
Any questions or motions from the board?
I move the Board of Commissioners approve the spending authority for catastrophic billing and related medical expenses incurred through January 2026 to Prime Care Medical, Inc. in the amount of $85,492.28.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have budget transfer for consultant support services. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Commissioners? Let's see. To find the right one here. Here we go.
Just a couple of presentations this
Yes.
morning, right?
So good morning. So the next two items that are on your agenda both go together. So wanted to provide a little bit of background for discussion. So as you may be aware, Carroll County is part of the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board, which is the regional metropolitan planning organization. And as we are members of that organization, there is grant money that's available to us every year. It's $48,000 that requires a $12,000 match. And we budget for that every year. So in total, we're talking about $60,000. And those are typically used for small planning type projects. So this year in FY26, we as staff discussed what a good use of those funds would be for this year. And we were looking at the Freedom area and the transportation network there. So we put together a request for proposal that included 3 different tasks. And those relate to 2 planned major streets, Dickinson Road and Ridenhour Way, which are planned major streets that have been in our transportation plan for many decades. They run parallel to Maryland 26, and the purpose for them is to offload some of the congestion from Maryland 26, some of the access points off of Maryland 26. And then we also included a task 3, which is for modeling of that portion of the Freedom area that's south of Maryland 26 and east of Maryland 32, because there are a number of connections that have been planned, but for one reason or another were not moved forward with. And so by studying these, we can identify what would be the impacts if the county then spent extra effort in making those connections, and how would that address traffic movements through the area. So I have a couple of slides that just show the area that we're talking about. The green line is Maryland 26. The northern red line that runs parallel to it is Dickinson Road, and then the southern red line is Ridenhour Way. And these are our planning level alignments. So basically a line on the map, there's no engineering that has been done for those. And so the purpose would be to do some high level engineering analysis to, let's define exactly where those roadways could be, what would be the cost implications, what is the reality of making those connections, and then what would be some recommendations for the county to move forward to try and accomplish those roadway connections. And then as far as the network modeling, this again is the region that we're looking at south of 26 and east of 32. So we published the RFP, the request for proposal, and there were 2 firms that submitted. A selection committee reviewed the proposals, and we look at the technical side of things, the approach, the experience, staff qualifications, and we score those. We then take that information provided to the office, the procurement office, who then gives us the bid information, and then that gets incorporated into the overall score. So the results of the scores, the 2 firms were Wallace & Montgomery, who scored 1,635 points, and Brutus & Associates, which scored 1,205 points. So with the higher score, our recommendation that the best value to the county is to move forward with Wallace & Montgomery. For your reference, those are the 2 bids. Wallace & Montgomery was the higher bid, but again, because of the technical expertise in the proposal, we felt that Wallace & Montgomery was the best solution. So Wallace & Montgomery broke out their bid, as I've shown here. They have some project management coordination for a little over $12,000. Each of the 2 roadway studies about $45,000, and then the network modeling $68,000, for a total of $172,185. As I mentioned, we have budgeted $60,000. So if the board wishes to move forward with this contract, we have the first task, which is why Mr. Zaleski is here, of moving $112,185 to the project budget. And then the second order of business would be the award of the contract to Wallace & Montgomery, if that is how you're so inclined. So happy to answer questions.
I did have one question,
Yes.
and this is, for you, this is probably nothing, but for me, this is interesting to see that there's a task 0 instead of task 1.
Yeah, so
Why does it show up as 0 instead of 1?
So in our request for proposal, we identified the 3 tasks, so task 1 through 3. Different consulting firms will propose in different manners. Some would add in their project management as part of task 1, task 2, and task 3, and break it out individually. For some reason, Wallace & Montgomery likes to have a separate task to identify that work that's associated with project management, coordination, and so on. So for some reason, they have that separated out. That was not by our request.
Okay, I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Commissioner Kyler, I think you have a question?
Yes, so the contract would be not to exceed, not a lump sum contract, but it's not to exceed in their bill against it. And does that mean each of the tasks are also not to exceed or just a contract? And would we see a change order? And I guess it has to be 10% or more. Would we see a change order if it does exceed?
Yes, so if they were to exceed, if the scope were to adjust and it were to exceed 10%, we would be back before you for the additional funding. What we identified in the RFP is that the modeling of, especially the modeling process, that involves collecting a lot of data that's available both from State Highway Administration, from the county, and so on. They are the professionals that know how to do the modeling, and so we are not aware of all of the inputs that may be required. What we stressed in the RFP is that we want to keep the cost down. There may be assumptions that we have to make. We do not want to have a large project of collecting additional data. So we don't want to go out and be doing more traffic counts and so on and so forth. However, if we reach the point in working through the project and there's no way around it, that we need some additional traffic counts and so on, that would be something that we would have to discuss as a scope amendment and would obviously bring back before the board to approve.
Thank you.
I think that was a good question, because I think one of the roads is a little simpler and smaller than the other piece, so maybe one would balance out the other. But I just want to thank you for bringing this to us. It's like 40 years overdue, but it's going to give us some certainty of what we need to do, take the line off the map if it won't go anywhere, and then we'll have some plan of action. And it's a perfect time to do it, that State Highway is doing their 26 plan. I think they'll be pleased that we're finally going to do something with that, one way or another, make a decision on what our path forward is. So it's thank you very much for thinking of this. This particular way of doing it it's very, very good. So I'm going to make the motion. I'm proud of it. Thank you. Mark this on my calendar in ink. I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve Resolution O26-03 to transfer $112,185 from grants unallocated to Unified Planning Work Program grant.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And up next, we have to award the contract for consultant support services for Carroll County Plan Roadway Concepts and Transportation Network Modeling.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Division of Comprehensive Planning, requests your approval to award the contract for consultant support services for Carroll County Plan Roadway Concepts and Transportation Network Modeling to Wallace Montgomery and Associates LLP in the amount of $172,185. The Division of Comprehensive Planning solicited proposals on the county's e-procurement platform, Public Purchase, and received 2 proposals. An evaluation committee was formed to conduct technical and financial review of the proposals submitted. The committee evaluated all proposals based on criteria detailed in the RFP. The highest ranked firm for this project is Wallace Montgomery and Associates LLP. This project is partially funded through a Unified Planning Work Program grant awarded to the Baltimore Metropolitan Council and allocated to Carroll County.
Any questions or actions by the board?
Nope, thank you.
Do you want to go ahead?
I move that the Board of Commissioners award the contract for consultant support services for Carroll County Plan Roadway and Concepts and Transportation Network Modeling to Wallace Montgomery and Associates LLP in the amount of $172,185.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And up next, we have the FY 2027 Consolidated Transportation Plan County Priority Letter.
Good morning again, and joined by Claire Stewart, our Division Manager for Comprehensive Planning, and I will drive the presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a brief presentation. So since we were before you on March 5th, we have revised the priority letter to align with some of the board's suggested comments. Just to briefly go over the highway safety, system preservation, and capacity enhancing projects. These are now in order of priority by request type. They're broken out from construction, engineering design, concept engineering, and planning studies. So under construction, the only project we have is the Maryland 32 breakout project from 2nd Street to Main Street. Under engineering design, we have Maryland 26 breakout project from Homeland Drive to Georgetown Boulevard. And then the Maryland 27 pedestrian tunnel near Center Street. For concept engineering, we have the remainder of the Maryland 26 corridor from Georgetown Boulevard to the reservoir. The Maryland 97 breakout project from Magna Way to Maryland 140. And then third in line, we have the Maryland 32 and Maryland 26 intersection concepts. And then finally, under planning studies, we have a requested advanced planning study for 140 from the county line to Maryland 91. So if there are no questions on that or discussion, we do have a recommended motion, which should be on your screen. Our next step is to circulate the delegation letter for signature and then submit the comment letter and delegation letter by April 1st.
I
Any
have one
question? I'm sorry.
Why are you here?
Why am I here? For approval.
Like, no, I mean, aren't you like due any day?
Oh, that, yes.
You weren't gonna be back.
About 8 days away. Yeah.
8 days away. Chrissy works in your office. I hope you're
Yes,
handy.
yes, yeah. So please don't take too long making this decision.
I know, right?
I really didn't think
I'm
you'd be
ticking.
back.
Every moment counts.
It counts. I know nothing
He's
about
usually
medicine.
asking, why am I here?
Are you pregnant too? Okay.
That could solve all of our budget problems.
Yeah, right, you'd be Guinness book. I move that the board approve the FY 2027 CTP County Priority Letter and direct staff to circulate the letter to the delegation for signatures of concurrence prior to its transmission to the Maryland Department of Transportation.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. I'm just going to say very quick, thank you for all of your hard work and helping us get this up to par. So thank you very much for everything. Any other discussion?
I'm going to work my butt off to
Yes,
get some money.
Commissioner Kyler has.
Commissioner Kyler, we got you.
Yeah, I think the motion is a little vague. The county priority letter, we will sign as county commissioners and the delegation, correct?
Yeah, I'm just reading
Yes.
from the script. Yes, we will sign it first.
Yes.
It's here for us
Okay.
to sign.
So Commissioner Kyler, is the idea to amend the motion to include that we're signing it?
But we have to approve it, so I get to approve it, we have to sign it.
Okay.
I mean, unless you need that. Right here for us to sign.
Yeah, I'm okay. I just wanted to verify. I'm okay with the motion.
All right, thank you very much. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Make sure we sign it before we leave.
Right,
Commissioner Collar's not here.
Up next, approval of resolution for forest conservation mitigation fees. I feel like you've been here before.
I have, yes. So joined here today by Janet O'Meara, Division Manager for Resource Management, and Jonathan Bowman, who is our Forest Conservation Specialist. As you may remember, we were before you on January 22nd to discuss a kind of critical issue from a development perspective. As a refresher, the state law requires forest mitigation, both afforestation and reforestation whenever there's development. And typically, our desire is that developers address that first and foremost on their property that's being developed. If that's not possible, then it's certainly allowable if they have another piece of property that they address those mitigation requirements on that other property. If they are unable to do that, historically, the way this has been addressed is with a private forest bank industry that's out there. These are essentially private citizens who set up a bank that they can sell that credit to the developer. We manage it, but the county is not involved in that process at all. Unfortunately, due to the demands on property in general related to things like solar and others, there's not we have run out essentially of private bank. And so that leaves some developers with little recourse to move their projects forward. There is an allowance in state law for fee in lieu, but that is not currently in the county code. We are working on addressing that and will be over the next couple of months. Assuming that a fee in lieu of program is something that's desirable, and we discussed at the last meeting, we need to set a rate for that. That rate needs to be able to cover the county's expenses, which could include the purchase of property, the plantings, long-term maintenance, and so on. So it is an expensive proposition. Also, we do not want to compete with that private banking industry. So our desire was to set those rates high enough that we were not competing and that we were sure that we're going to be covering all county costs. Without any other metrics to go by, we simply looked at Howard County and what their fee structure is, and we modeled and recommended a fee structure similar to theirs. However, we also recognize that the private citizen who is just simply building a house on a lot of record, who then triggers forest conservation, that they are different than developers who are developing a large property or a large subdivision. And so our recommendation was to cut those fees in half for those building permits, those single property projects. The rate is still higher than what the average going rate is from the banking industry, but we feel this is a good compromise to solve the issue and not put the county in as being directly responsible for all of this work. So with that, the board on January 22nd directed us to draft a resolution with those rates and so on, which we have done and are included in your packet. And so we are simply here to answer any further questions and hopefully have the approval to move forward with that rate structure to address this issue.
Chris, I've had some heartburn about this since we've talked about it. I've learned a lot. We keep talking about affordable housing, and I know we have to do this as a state program. I understand that. But when I look at these amounts, I mean, even for a developer, an acre, $65,000 an acre, that's a lot. I'm just wondering if there's other ways that we haven't explored to be able to, I hate to get in the tree planting business too for the county and acquiring property. I still think there might be other solutions that we could find that we could make it win-win for everybody else. So how do we continue to look for other options? And I mentioned ag easements, and there's different kinds of ag easements. Farmers are having trouble keeping up with what they need to do. Some of the easements are ours. We can change. You can't put an easement on an easement. But there are also non-tillable land that is parts of farms that they might want to put some stuff. So how do we encourage the private sector, maybe on agricultural land, to put these things, even on our ag remainders? Because I don't want to get into the tree business. I don't want to be buying property ourselves. So what else can we do to not just say, here, pay this money? Because it's just driving up the cost of all of these properties. When I look at what 100-acre lot across from me, I think they've already banked it, but it would be $650,000 for 100 acres. That's a lot of money so, just to get started. And so I don't know if they have other areas that they're able to resource. They have to do it in their own county, is that right? If they build in the county, They have to do it in the county. Is that something we have control over or not?
No, the mitigation needs to be provided in the county where the project is happening.
But is that our decision, or is that?
That comes down from the state.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, Jonathan, I talked to you at length about it, and I thank you for all the information.
Yes.
I learned that we are one of the least forested counties, we are the least forested on the Western Shore. But then it's probably because we have so much ag preservation. You can't plant trees in the middle of the field. But there may be opportunities all ag property is not being tilled and being used. I would like to find if we can find a different way to do this and put it out there and say, what other options are there? Why aren't people getting into this business? Is it because they're putting solar panels up instead? You can make a lot more money with solar panels. But this is just a big expense to build one house or a development, and we're trying to encourage housing. And I don't even know that the state, I was talking to some people about this down there last week, and they're like, they didn't even think about it, because it's been in place for so long. So I don't know how many counties are having the same problem, and not having the tree banks. Maybe they would allow us to do it other places, maybe we could come, but I just hate to put this away and say, this is what we're doing, and go. And we've just driven up this lot, developing this lot by that much money, or this piece of property. So what can we do to continue that? I mean, is anybody being held up right now from
Yes.
Yeah.
like how many?
There's 4 projects currently that are in need of Forest Bank credit who haven't been able to obtain it. So that's a serious concern, and that's probably the most pressing concern for us as staff to be able to advance projects.
And are they individual homes, like single, one home?
One is an individual home build, and then our Chick-fil-A project in Westminster, the Carroll Highlands Self-Storage, and Members First Credit Union here in Westminster are the ones that are currently on my radar for needing credit.
And one thing they can do, if it's a single-family home, or whatever, one plot, they could put some on their own property right now and reforest on their own.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's acre for acre.
Yeah.
And it's what you disturb, I mean, it's just what is disturbed.
Well, so there are 2 components to forest mitigation. There's afforestation, which every parcel that goes through development is required to have a certain percentage of forest on it. So if you do not have that, then you have to plant and mitigate for that. There are other ways that can be addressed for that, and we are looking into some of those and addressing those with the proposed code revisions. And then there's reforestation, that if you cut down trees, then you have to mitigate for those. And again, our primary desire is that the developer, whether it be a single-family home or a large developer, is that they address that on their property. So that is our desire for them to take that as the first step, and they certainly will do that because that's the cheapest method of moving forward. Step 2 priority is another parcel that they control, whether they own it or they reach some sort of private agreement, but they address the mitigation on other property. The issue is that we can certainly explore other options, but right now, if those 2 options are not available, there's no other option available for development to move forward. So all we're doing is we're putting an option out there. It's an option that we do not want to have to do. We don't have the resources to be running a tree planting program and addressing all of this, which is part of the reason why we want to set this rate high, so it's very undesirable, and that developers will find other options than coming back to us to use this last option. But we need to have an option available that if there's nothing else available, that there's a way for projects to move forward.
So, and you mentioned 2 commercial projects and 1 individual home. What was the 4th one?
There was Chick-fil-A, Carroll Highlands, and Members First Federal Credit Union were the commercial projects.
Where's that? Members?
Members First is in Westminster here, next to Goodwill.
Commissioner Kyler, I believe you have your hand up.
Yes, and the last time we talked this, I brought up some issues. Right now, the 27, well, I like the proposal you're making today, but I think that's not enough. The 27,225 per acre right now would be the cheapest price in Carroll County. And we probably owe it to some single-family residents to do that. Right now, I think the market in Carroll County is about 30 grand. The market in Frederick County is 20 grand. The difference is we exceed the state requirements for this. We make them mow it more often. We make them maintain it longer. Frederick County has existing forests. I think an existing forest, it's 2.5 times to 1, but it's 7 grand an acre. So that's still a little bit cheaper and saves people. We need to look at our rules and make them back to the state. I don't think we gain anything by making our rules more strict. And what I hear from people that have this, there's one out near the airport that they're waiting to do their solar, and then they're do more around it. They didn't want to inhibit getting solar, but and then there's others I know of, and like I say, they would sell it in Frederick County for 20 grand and here 30 grand because of our requirements. And I think we need to back them up, and we definitely need to make existing forests and I assume you guys know more about that. I made the mistake of saying virgin forest, and they said that's not the requirement, it's existing forests, and I'm not sure how old a tree needs to be, whether it's virgin or existing, but you guys will figure that out. But if we do that and it gets down to the 20 grand, then we have made it more affordable. And I agree with your concept on subdivision and site development. They're more professionals than a single family resident, and they should pay more. I'm not sure if double's right, but I'm fine with this if we make it cheaper to do it.
Yes, sir, and we have drafted up revised codes for the county code. We have been endeavoring to have the Department of Natural Resources review those, and so we will be bringing those codes before the board. I believe May is the time frame. We have to have those new codes adopted by July 1. So yes, we are looking into some of those issues that you've raised, and we'll be presenting those to the board.
Writing this down. When we talked about the different type of trees, and Jonathan and I talked about it at length, many times we see all these trees planted, and then they all die because they plant them in the middle of the summer. And obviously they have to be watered, and they have to be cared for, and they're very little sticks. And you wonder, hey, what was this? Did we ever get anywhere? How do we make sure that when we plant something, I mean, sometimes if you're in a nursery, they water things, they take care of them. When they're all over the place, you might not have a water source to do that. Can we lower our requirements on one hand with the 5 years, and then maybe say you have to have a more mature plant, or it'd be nice to have them in a place where they will survive, because planting them is one thing and having them survive is the other thing. So how do we strategize and make our rules be that the survival rate is higher, not just by the 5 years, but by maybe what is planted and where it is located to be able to tend for it?
Yeah. So I'll take a first stab at answering, then Jonathan, if you have anything to add. So yes, our requirement that's in code right now is that when forest mitigation is planted, that there's 5 years of maintenance required. And I believe that's what Commissioner Kyler is referencing, is that other counties have 3 years and so on. Mm-hmm. The reason why it was increased to 5 was a recognition for exactly what you were talking about, is that the survivability, we sometimes have complaints from adjacent property owners that the 3 years go by and then we allow the developer to walk away and you've got a field full of sticks and it's not a forest, which is what it's supposed to become. And so our opinion is that you'd really need 10 years of maintenance in order to truly establish a forest. 10 years seemed to be a bit much, so we agreed that 5 years would be an appropriate amount of time. However, what we're proposing in our new version of the code is that it's 3 years minimum. We would then inspect the planting, and if it meets the requirements of a forest, in other words, if the person that planted things used larger stock and had better survivability and so on, if it met the criteria, then we could allow them to, we would release the bond and so on. But otherwise, if it does not meet those criteria, the maintenance would be the additional 2 years or 5 years in total. So we're trying to strike that happy medium of we need to establish the forest, but what is an appropriate time frame for maintenance to require in order to get that forest established? Did I hit it right?
Right on.
So they would have the alternative, because if you're in a nursery, they get watered. So if they're established in the first few years, there's a better chance of them being established after the first 3 years, where you replant them. Do they have an option of when they plant them? Do they have to be a certain period?
Yeah, they certainly do, and there's a survival requirement related to this, the success of the plantings and successful inspections. So even at a 3-year inspection period, you're still getting through a survival requirement and meeting a certain percentage of survival over that time. The challenge is when you have shorter time frames, you have smaller material, and smaller material has a better chance of dying after the maintenance period's over.
I mean, and the reason I'm asking too, I noticed a lot of our projects aren't very pretty with landscaping. They don't really put anything in. And then I look at other places, they've got lots of landscaping. And I was asking someone why we could not use some of the landscaping. They're planting trees, and I know it's not all forest. But on one hand, we're taking down forest, we want to timber trees. On the other hand, we're planting forest. But if we could count some of what they're doing toward their actual putting up trees around the property, we'd get a better product. And I think they allow that in Delaware. I'm not positive, but I think they do. So they get credit for all these things that they plant. So you end up with beautiful communities that have all these plantings, and we still have lots of deer. I have deer in my yard every night, like a dozen of them. And so grass, they like my flowers. That's why I planted plastic ones this year for the first time ever. But my point is, it's still green. What was the purpose of the original bill, which was, I think the bill was put forth in the Schaefer administration a long time ago, well-intended. But now it's gotten to be a big, costly thing because of the availability of land. So could we, I'm not sure what the laws say, but I've always said we're there to change laws, and we're talking about affordable housing, and we want to have we want a good environment for these houses. And I've noticed some of these projects have like no trees. And if you could encourage them to put the barriers up and put trees out front, and some of that count toward their mitigation. Is that allowed in state law, or should we try to get it put in state law? Because it hasn't been, when I brought it up to my colleagues a couple weeks ago, they hadn't even heard of this problem. It's just something that's been done for so many years, and maybe in their county it's not risen to the level of, hey, maybe we should count some of these things. And then you'd have a better product on your development. Even the landowner, I know I've put in tens of thousands of dollars worth of trees on my own property, but it wouldn't have counted. And maybe it should. So how can we find that balance, or can we do some of that now? Do we have that?
Yeah. I can speak to that a little bit. So the state law, the Forest Conservation Act at the state level, does have a provision for a variety of mitigation mechanisms for reforestation. There is landscaping provisions to use street trees and to use some block type of landscape plantings to fulfill portions of the forest conservation requirement for certain projects. But the stipulations around them are very specific. So for instance, to use street trees, you have to be doing it in a municipality that has a street tree program that's recognized by the Department of Natural Resources. So not everybody has that. Obviously, a lot of our projects are in the county and not in municipalities. So it's those very specific requirements around the use of landscaping that have caused us as a jurisdiction not to have utilized those mitigation techniques at this point. Now, we could revisit that, I suppose.
The reason I'm asking, development costs a lot, and we're trying to keep housing prices down. Developers, I'm talking one lot, $650,000. And it's a lot that doesn't even have any trees, so they're adding trees. It'd be nice if they could even take some of that and count the landscaping that the people would enjoy, that would have evergreens and some trees. It would count, and then it's a win-win for everybody. The person getting the development now doesn't have to pay twice, the developer doesn't have to pay twice, and we still have trees. And maybe they're larger trees, and a lot of these places that I know in some of these communities are tight together, the maintenance is taken care of by the homeowner association, and they have irrigation, so maybe the trees would live. I would just like us to pursue something that is not just driving the cost up, but we're getting a benefit out of, and it's sort of helping everybody. Because I feel like we're going to do this and leave it, and then there's one more thing that everybody's got to do.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Krebs, I want to interrupt. I apologize. Commissioner Kyler's had his hand up for
Oh, I'm
quite a
sorry.
while. I want to make sure
I don't
that
have my screen on, I didn't see you.
Commissioner Kyler, you're good.
Okay, thank you. Number one, a lot of the trees you see on farms are paid for by the government, some planted by the government, and they have a totally different maintenance requirement than this program does. And you mentioned there is survivability. Using landscape trees would just jack the price up a lot. It's not a cost savings. If we really want to save people costs, we need to look at these. These are forests, they're not parks. And we need to look at it that way and enforce the survivability rates, but not extend the time. It's just, again, if we want it to be $30,000 plus, we can add all this stuff, but it's not going to save a penny.
Well, I think, I can appreciate the discussion we're having on this. I think a lot of us are making the same points. I understand that we've got some situations where we may have to move forward with this, but what I'm hearing and I'm agreeing with is there really needs to be a phase 2 of this that further looks at issues of survivability, the ability to bring costs down. And I mean, again, I'm fairly new to this issue myself, but I think Commissioner Krebs had an interesting point. I mean, we have a lot of ag land in the county owned by people who are probably mostly farmers, that is existing forest, that is mature forest, however you want to put it, why wouldn't we be able to entertain some sort of program where, I mean, if you're going to dish out this amount of money, maybe at a reduced amount, why couldn't we entertain that where people in the county can, yeah, sure, this acreage is now part of a forest bank, or, you know, it's part of a conservation mitigation program, and give that money to them. The forest is already there, and then we're done, and we don't have to maintain the land. Is that sort of out? Is that too far out there? Is that ridiculous suggestion?
No, we can certainly look into the legalities of that. But part of the issue is the purpose of the ag preservation program is to preserve agricultural production.
This would be not.
Right?
This wouldn't be ag pres land, and this would just be regular zone. This would be zoned. This would be obviously agricultural land that is an existing forest, and we've got plenty of it here. And I don't want to speak for the farming community, but something tells me they're probably not going to farm that area. They might hunt on it. They're still going to be allowed to after this ridiculous bill going through the General Assembly. But my point being, you know, they're not going to. It's not tillable land.
Yeah, so absolutely, and that's the intention of what we're trying to accomplish here, right? Is that we need a solution, which so that a solution of last resort. But for those ag farmers that hopefully this is bringing some attention to this, and that they recognize that, hey, I can plant 10 acres and talk to Jonathan about registering that as a bank, and that it's a good revenue source. So yes, we're trying to get the word out and encourage folks to establish those private banks, because we don't want to be in the business of banking.
Okay. Yeah.
So just for clarification on one point, though, you mentioned, what was it, 4 different projects? One was residential, 3 business related.
Correct.
Was I correct in my understanding that if we don't do this, those are then put on the shelf, so to speak?
Well, what I'm seeing playing out currently, we have some banking that has been created by developers who intended to use it exclusively for their own purposes. However, as they have been approached by some folks with projects who've needed credit, they've been willing in some cases to sell some credit at a much higher rate now, of course, to those developers. So that has freed up some projects from this impasse. But those are the projects, the 4 that I listed are ones that I currently, as far as I'm aware, have not been able to purchase Forest Bank credit and are currently essentially stuck without.
So I guess my question, which I don't know if any of us can properly answer, would be if you have those 4 sitting there right now.
Yeah.
And there are obviously other things potentially in the queue, we could be in a situation in the not so distant future that you have 7, 12, however many. I like your thought, Commissioner Guerin, of looking at ag land, not ag pres, but ag land. I think that's worth looking into. If we were to move forward with this, obviously we could adjust this later. My concern is if we start having things backing up on the other end, we're kind of stuck, for lack of a better way of putting it. So my question is, if we were to approve this currently, we can obviously change these numbers at any time.
Absolutely.
My biggest, and I believe me, I understand Commissioner Krebs's concerns about the numbers, and I'm right there with her. I guess my concern is if we have all these projects backing up, we're just creating directly in some fashion a bigger challenge to try to work our way out of then.
Yes.
So my thought would be to approve this currently, have staff, direct staff to then look at some other options, and then come back to this as soon as we can come up with some other options. That way, I guess at best it's a stopgap right now. I'm not suggesting this is perfect. I'm not suggesting I like this completely, but I think it would be detrimental for us to lock out future development that's already in the queue.
I guess I would like to say one thing. As Chris alluded to, we will be back before you in early May to go over code changes, which will talk about the applicability of the code. And it is our hope through some changes there and modifications that there will be instances where forest conservation may not be triggered for an individual property that's being developed if they can keep their limited disturbance under a certain threshold. So through the code change process, we're also looking at those options as well, because, you know, it is something that we recognize.
And one thing.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Okay.
Commissioner Kyler had his hand up
I
again. I
didn't see,
apologize.
I don't have my screen on, sorry, I can't see
Sorry,
it.
Commissioner Kyler?
Yeah, well, and I semi-promise this is the last. Are there any things in the regulations, state or county, that would allow a developer to bond this off while you're waiting for it? And if you have their bond, you know they're gonna do it, but I'm not sure if that's legally allowed.
I'm not aware of a provision that allows us to do that.
Is there a provision that doesn't allow you to do it?
I'm not aware of that either.
I mean, we do require certain things of developers, and sometimes they wait a long time when we keep their bond on the new development, and we don't release it until they've done it, so I'm not sure why that couldn't be included, because that's a good idea. You know, I know,
We'd have to research that.
I mean, I know a development near me a number of years ago was supposed to plant a bunch of trees, and they didn't, and the county held the bond, but then they all put fences up in the way, so they couldn't put the trees up. I don't know what happened with the bond, but they just didn't do it in a timely manner. But it might be, if it's required as part of the development, that they could have bond it until we get a solution. It's their choice.
So if, I think that the idea that we're going to have or continue to have discussions about this is a very good idea. I think that having other options is very important, so I agree with all my colleagues. But in the absence of other options, I guess this is a fallback is really what it comes down to, and that's the nature of the discussion today. I only have one quick question, and that relates to Exhibit A, the Forest Conservation Mitigation Rate page. So it seems to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that a single-family residential building permit is basically half of what it would be for a subdivision and site development. It's basically what it is, right?
Yes.
So I just wanted to make note of either a mathematical error or something that maybe I am looking at incorrectly. So 27,225 doubled should be 54,450, not 54,540. I don't know, this
You're absolutely
typographical.
correct.
Okay, that's just typographical.
$10 off.
$10 off, yes.
Right.
We can change it, or we can, if you want to pass it with that change, we can make this change as the exhibit. Yes.
Well, wait, if it's 450 to 540, that's more than $10.
No, it'd be $550.
Should be.
Yeah, if it's 50, it should be 54,450.
450.
Yes, correct.
Not 55,500, but that's more than $10.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Every bit counts.
Don't do math.
Transposition error.
Yes, we're not going to do math. At this
If you want it
moment.
to be exactly half, just ask it to be, right?
Yes.
If that, if-
I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't, you know, like a specific formula that was developed to be 540 instead of 450. I didn't want to, you know,
No,
to,
I
okay.
think two numbers got transposed there.
Okay.
I just have another question I was just thinking about. Does this apply to, like, our buildings, government buildings? Does it apply to, like, the nonprofits, like, it applies to all that? So, like, our new project we were talking about this morning for, Habitat for Humanity, this would
Yes.
apply to them.
Yes.
I still have heartburn over this. So I would like to see the policy come back first. I know we have to do something, but the one lady that wrote to us, when we talked about this 30,000, her 18,000 went to 30,000 because we set a new floor. I'm afraid that we're setting a new floor here, and it's going to be that things aren't going to come down. We're just going to set a higher floor. And that's what happened when we talked about it a month ago, because, she called right away, and it went up by like the $12,000, which was a problem. So now they're on hold as well. I would like to see if we can do multiple options. So developers have options. So the homeowner has an option. They can either do this, do that. And the stuff on farmland, right now they can do it as well. They can do it on this non-preserved farmland. I was looking at, can they do it on preserved farmland? And we have different programs, and it might just be an option. You can't put an easement on an easement. But if we put in our own easements that you could, or we could ask the state to see if they could allow it on the untillable part, and I'm not talking about the part where they're planting fields, it would give farmers another option for a new revenue source, because farmers right now don't have enough revenue sources necessarily, and they might have a part that is not tillable that they could put a few acres of land, and that they might be interested in. Just the more options we give them, and the landscaping option, again, it's an option for that developer, and he might want to say, hey, I'm going to do all this, and I'll get X amount of credit for it. And if he wants to build instead of putting sticks in that are gonna die, maybe he'll, I mean, it drives me nuts when I see these tree farms and all the money that it costs, and they're all dead. And some of them have been our own for our schools, and I've seen it. And I've finally looked at it, 20 years later, we got like 10 trees at Oklahoma Road Middle School that was like hundreds planted there. So it's like, okay, what was the point in this? So we got 10 trees out of it. It's like virtue signaling that we've done something that really has not created a forest, the intention of it. So I would just like to make sure we look at all of the options and offer all of the options and make it, you know, the end result is we want this stuff to be survivable. We want the intention of the original bill legislation. And if we need some tweaks, I don't know if they're in regulation at the state or if they're not, but I think that we're one of the first counties this is hitting. And I think other counties will have similar types of issues. But our land, because we have so much tied up in ag pres, it's hitting us early, just like the bigger counties, like Howard County. Frederick still has a lot of space, I think Washington County, or maybe they'd let us do land banking somewhere, do the banking somewhere else if we would allow that, if they would allow it. So anything that is restricted by the state code, let us know. We'll see if that can be looked at, because it's something, when I asked, they really were not aware of. And again, we're trying to keep housing prices, this affects housing prices. Chick-fil-A is going to sell plenty of lemonade and chicken nuggets to make up for it, but it's that cost. And to our project that we're getting ready to do, how many acres was that? 11? No, it was a lot of acres. That's a lot of money they're going to have to pay in tree mitigation. And that's going to make that cost of those houses go up as well. So I'd just like to see it as a more comprehensive package. So I'm just going to say no.
Commissioner
I'm going
Kyler,
to say no for today, just for today.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Krebs, I didn't mean to interrupt. I
That's all right.
apologize. Commissioner Kyler, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I totally disagree with that. We can always change this. We're holding up some residents from building their house right now. So why wouldn't we pass this as modified by Commissioner Vigliotti's math and get it on, and then we can work on this all we want. But and I don't want to get into ag people and their, you know, that's not correct, but that doesn't matter. But I just hate to see this delayed because of misinformation. We need to pass it and give them the opportunity to build and then talk about it. I don't know why we want to delay a homeowner.
All right, well, right now we have one homeowner that's listed. She's my constituent, and she had an agreement for, I think it was $18,000. And the day we talked about it, the next day it went up to 30. So now hers is going to go up to 32 because there is one bank that's left. So we're actually going to raise the price for this one person, and it's the only one house right now that's in the queue. I would suggest we bring this back quickly. It's just, we need a more comprehensive solution. It's so easy just to say, oh, let's charge people for it. So I understand what you're saying, but, excuse me, I've got the floor. Excuse me, you just interrupted me, excuse me. I would like to see the more comprehensive solution and everybody brainstorm to give people choices instead of driving the costs of these projects up, especially these nonprofits that we got coming up in front of us. So, well, I mean, I'm willing to work on it myself. I got a whole folder on it because I have been doing some homework on it because it's again, affordable housing is something we care about.
Affordable housing I care about. I don't want to get into how many houses I've done versus you, but it's just so frustrating because we talk and we just want to delay people. It is so naive to think because you know of one house, that's the only one that exists. I know 10 different houses being built in my neighborhood, and some of them may need this. I just don't understand why we want to kick the can down the road. And when we can pass this and always change it, why we want to delay people is just beyond me.
I just want to say for the record, I'm not trying to put misinformation out. I'm using the numbers that Jonathan just gave us of the projects that are waiting for this. And so I'm hoping that's not misinformation, but you said it was one house. So that's what I know, and I don't have any other information, so it's not trying to be misinformation.
If I might, though.
Misinformation was ag and forest and 100 other things that developers would know better.
Yeah, before.
I'm sorry. But
that's all right. Before we
want to delay people, let's delay people. I was elected to make decisions, not to kick the can down the road.
Real quickly, if I might, I know there was the one residential and the 3 commercial. Currently, but as was mentioned several minutes ago by staff, there are other projects that will be falling in line to that. So when that occurs, and we all know of some other things in the works that will at some point fall into that as well, I'm going to make a motion, and we'll see where we go from here. I move the board adopt the resolution to set a fee structure for forest conservation mitigation purchased from the county effective today. I would ask that we modify Exhibit A to change the price from $54,540 an acre to $54,450 an acre. And we would also direct staff to look into other additional options to look into ways to assist in forest conservation, and if possible, and I'm not going to hold you to this, see if we can get that back on the agenda relatively soon. Would that be doable in 60 days or 30 days?
60 days, yes.
60.
We've a planned out schedule
That's fair.
that we are going on, I'm affectionately calling it the road trip, and to
Understood.
take this information to the surveyors, the surveying and engineering community, to the planning commission, the EAC, and so on, to get their feedback, and to get citizen feedback on this. And then we are looking to bring this to the board early May. So I believe that's less than 60 days out.
Okay, so we'll say.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's
We
my
have a
motion.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, you're good.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that,
We have
as stated.
We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm opposed, and I just explain my vote. I just would like to see it done comprehensively so that we're not driving the price up temporarily for all of this, and it'll give us a sense of urgency, but I would like to see it in 60 days. If it comes back and we have some solutions, I'd be happy to support it, but I thank you. I'm about finding solutions, not just throwing money at it.
Right, understood.
Thank you all very much. And last up on our agenda for today for the items is request for determination of exceptional circumstances for the Byron Hill subdivision plat recordation schedule in accordance with Chapter 156. Chris, you look familiar.
Yes.
Let you get rotating,
Yeah.
revolving chairs here.
Yes.
That's good.
Good afternoon, Laura. How are you?
Afternoon.
Hi, how are you? It is
Yes.
afternoon. Good
Yes,
afternoon.
joined here by Laura Matthias, who's a division manager for Bureau Division of Development Review, and we also have some representatives from Byron Hills who, if you want to come join us. Yes. So as you may recall, we've had some discussions about the county's APFO ordinance, and as you may recall, there are, when there is a mitigation issue, and in this case, it's a school capacity issue, there are two checks, two kind of gates, one way to look at it. The first is for Planning Commission, that Planning Commission cannot approve the plan moving forward unless the mitigation is planned for within the CIP. So in this case, Planning Commission did approve this project in August 19th of last year because the Freedom Elementary School improvements were in the CIP. The second check is that the developer cannot record those lots until the project is under construction that provides the mitigation, unless the Board of County Commissioners determine that there's exceptional circumstance, and then you can allow the project to move forward. So I'll allow, if the developers would like to introduce themselves, and we'll turn it over to them. They're basically here to make the case of exceptional circumstance. Now, that is not defined, so that is entirely up to the board to determine what constitutes an exceptional circumstance, and then you can allow the development to move forward.
Go ahead, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Marty Hackett with CLSI. I'm here with Tim Burkhardt of Burkhardt Homes.
Can you move a little closer to the microphone? I'm sorry.
Sure.
We want to make sure the cameras are picking up, and we also have Commissioner Kyler virtually, so.
As Chris said, here to look for the exceptional circumstance for the property. It's unique. Obviously, we're in the Freedom District. You guys, I don't want to belabor that with time because you spoke about it earlier today. But we do know that obviously there were 3 additions that were supposed to be well on their way as far as the design goes. I know you guys elected to continue finishing the design of it, but you know, at this point in time, you're not planning on building the additions. So this property's got 4 lots on it, and probably the Board of Ed calculates student population, it's probably going to be 1 to 2 students in the elementary school district, so we don't think we're going to have a burden on the school facility. That's really what we're here for.
And I didn't catch your name, sir.
Oh, my name's Tim Burkhardt, Burkhardt Homes.
Okay. I just have a question about the project itself. I know there was an issue with ingress and egress. Has that been worked out with the, accessing to the sites through somebody's property? Is that all worked out?
Yeah,
That's my understanding,
that's been
yes.
worked out for quite some time.
Okay. And I will say, the reason we're holding this stuff up, our enrollments are going down. Freedom's an old school, and it's only 0.1% over. I mean, since last year, so it's at 20.1. So it's like, okay, do we spend 15 million or whatever it is to something when and we might keep going down. So it might, if it had gone down one more, if you had knocked a couple kids off, it might have gone down below that. So I don't see investing in, say, like putting a heart transplant in a 100-year-old, but I don't have any problem with moving forward with this, as long as everything else is worked out with the site and everything. I don't think it's going to be material.
Any other questions, comments, or actions from the board?
I move the board determine the existence of exceptional circumstance for the Byron Hills subdivision to allow immediate plat recordation per Chapter 156 of the County Code.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Plant some
Appreciate
trees on that property.
Up next, we have public comment. Roberta, do we have anybody here for public comment? Chris, do we have anybody on the line for public comment?
I believe we do, sir. Caller, if you could please use *6 to unmute. You'll have 3 minutes. Please identify yourself and please tell us your address. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Okay, hold on. Let me start my timer here. Yes, Catherine Adelaide, and one of 9 members of the Carroll County Republican Central Committee, residing in beautiful Carroll County. First of all, thank you for all that you do and for the opportunity to reach out to you virtually. I was very appreciative of the notification I received about the joint statement of the Carroll County Commissioners and the Sheriff's Office regarding sobriety on the roads during this past holiday weekend, and I hope everybody had a great St. Patrick's Day and stayed safe. So I appreciate that public service that you perform. Okay, I'll jump right into Carroll County Republican Central Committee news. Our next meeting is always the 4th Thursday of the month, which will be a week from today, Thursday, March 26 at 6:30 at the Carroll County Senior Center. I do want to mention, encourage everybody to go to our website, ccgop.net, and check out all of our fundraisers. And I like the word fun in there. These fundraisers really are enjoyable. I enjoy it when I can get there. We need you to support our Republican candidates and their fundraisers. And also, we also have 5 Republican clubs in Carroll County. The Republican Club of Carroll County, the South Carroll Republican Club, the Republican Women's Club of Carroll County, the Republican Women's Club of Taneytown, and the Tri-District Republican Club. I think that's something to brag about when you have a county with 5 Republican clubs in it. So we encourage people to attend those meetings. I just attended the Republican Women's Club of Taneytown yesterday. That's a small club, but they did put out a resolution, which I helped draft, that got passed by the State Maryland Federation of Republican Women Against the Recreational Marijuana. I think Tri-District is coming up on Monday, March 30th. Okay, moving on to my pro-life report. Unfortunately, the March for Life, the Maryland March for Life, was canceled due to the rain. We were a little disappointed about that. We were all ready to go down on the bus to Annapolis. It will be rescheduled. We don't have a date as yet, but I will keep you posted. And then regarding the Carroll County Right to Life, we're in our official membership drive from December through March, although you can join anytime. There's no minimum amount to join. We just want people to participate. We usually meet the 3rd Thursday of each month, which will be tonight. We're having a virtual meeting. You can go to our website, Carroll County Right to Life, to get information on how to join us virtually. And and we're monitoring some of the bad bills. Maryland Right to Life, I'll be going to their quarterly Board of Directors meeting on Saturday, April 11th, 26th. Monday, April 13th is Sine Die. There's some absolutely horrible bills. I mentioned HB 1131. It has not had a vote yet. This is an attack on life after it's born and an attack on law enforcement. So encourage you to pray that that does not get a vote. And my time's up. I will also, after this, be testifying for pro-life bills in Annapolis virtually. Thank goodness for virtual communications. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep. Chris, do we have anybody else for public comment?
That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will now move into admin open. Does anybody have anything for admin open?
I just have one quick, brief thing. I wanted to thank everybody, both county and obviously the municipalities this past week with this storm for all the due diligence they did in keeping us safe. Very blessed we did not end up with a much more significant situation on hand, so I just want to thank them for that.
I will associate myself with those comments, and very well said. Anything else for open admin? All right, let's move into agenda review. Good afternoon, Wanda. How are you? So for week number 1, the week of Monday, March 23rd. Monday, March 23rd shows nothing. Tuesday, March 24th, beginning at 9 o'clock a.m., we resume with budget agency hearings. Wednesday, March 25th, Mako Legislative Committee in Annapolis with Commissioner Kyler. Recreation and Parks Advisory Board meeting with Commissioner Krebs. And Carroll County Public Library Board of Trustees meeting in Finksburg. On Thursday.
I'm attending.
And Commissioner Kyler will be attending. Okay.
Yeah, Mako has stuff all day, but I should be able to get out of there by 4 or 5, so I'm attending.
All right, thank you very much. Thursday, March 26th, 10 o'clock a.m., all 5 of us will be present for the Sheriff's Office Training Academy graduation and awards ceremony at the Training Academy in Hempstead. 1 o'clock p.m., we will go into our normal open session, beginning with Priority Carol, and then a proclamation for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Item number 2, legislative update with Pam. Item number 3, public hearing for the extension of the deferral on public storage units in District 5.
That's actually not accurate. That's
That's
going to
not?
be on April the 9th.
That's April the 9th?
Advertising requirements we have to meet for that one.
Okay. So that is on April the 9th, advertising requirements. All right, thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
So then, item number 4 will become item number 3, and that is approval to submit application and acceptance of award for Carroll County Farm Museum stormwater pond design. Item number 4, comment letter for the City of Westminster on annexation number 72 for Patamy LLC. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then item number 5, HCHW CCFM non-capital grant application for a CCFM enhanced visitor experience plan. And then followed by public comments, and then admin open, agenda review. Friday, March 27th shows nothing. Saturday, March 28th, Winfield Community Volunteer Fire Department Annual Banquet, Commissioner Guerin. Union Bridge Volunteer Fire Company Banquet, myself. Sunday, March 29th, Commissioner's Podcast with Commissioner Gordon. Are there any corrections or alterations for the first week?
I would just like to mention something. You said that on the public hearing, you have to advertise it. I want to bring this up later, but I've never seen one of these advertisements, and I want to make sure we're sending it out on Carroll Connect. I finally got a copy of one, and I'm going to show it to everyone. It's in the back in the legal section, one from years ago. We found one, and it's like in 8 fonts. That's all it's required by law. You can't read it. It doesn't even tell you what it is. I would never, ever know what it meant, just because it's legalese. I think we got to make a policy up of how we want to communicate with people. So that's why no one ever responds to this stuff. When we say we're having a hearing, unless I put it out or somebody, people don't know about it. And that's why nobody emails and nobody writes in, because it's not being communicated.
Are they not going out on Carroll Connect? They are, right?
Okay, I just want to make sure. I know
Okay.
it's not a formal policy,
Yeah.
but just,
Okay.
until we make it a formal policy, just send it out on Carroll Connect, and I'll be happy to send it through, because I want people to know about it. Because
Chris Swam has made it clear that we should contact him whenever there's a public hearing, so that's going to be
just
done.
everybody nod their head, yes. And where's it going to be?
It'll be right here.
At like what time?
We don't have a time
Oh,
yet.
it'll be during our meeting. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you were doing, I'm fine, that's fine.
This is just the information.
That's fine.
Hearings for next Tuesday.
Thank you, Roberta.
Thank you.
So for any other additions, corrections for first week? All right. Oh, thank you. For the second week, the week of Monday, March 30th. Monday, March 30th shows nothing. Tuesday, March 31st, Veterans Advisory Meeting with Commissioners Gordon and Kyler. Wednesday, April 1st shows nothing. I hope that's not an April Fool's joke. Thursday, April 2nd. I thought it was funny.
It was.
Not so good, not as good as Tuesday. April 2nd, beginning with Priority Carol, or I'm sorry, open session, 9 o'clock a.m., beginning with Priority Carol. National Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation. Item number 2, legislative update with Pam. Item number 3, if needed, City of Westminster Annexation 72 for Patamy LLC. Item number 4, grant approval to submit application and acceptance of award for FY26 MEMS Advanced Life Support ALS funding. Item number 5, contract award for 2026 hot mix asphalt paving number 1, followed by public comments, agenda review, and administrative session open. At 12 o'clock p.m., there is the Moroccan Glow ribbon cutting celebration in Mount Airy.
Commissioner Gurn,
Put me on the spot
I'd
there.
like to know what it is.
Check my calendar.
He will check his calendar.
I believe it's a restaurant, but I could be
Oh.
wrong.
Friday, April 3rd, county offices are closed in observance of Good Friday. Saturday, April 4th shows nothing. Sunday, April 5th is the Commissioner's Podcast with Commissioner Guerin, and I believe that is also Easter Sunday, so. If
Next
there-
week, the 26th, at the business meeting, I will not be here. I'll be in Annapolis pretty much all day.
So you will not be here for, I'm sorry, what day?
Next week,
26.
26.
Okay. All right, are there any additions, corrections to week number 2 of our agenda? Hearing none? Yes.
March 31st, we originally had a budget work sessions, and closed, so that's gone away?
It's on there.
Yeah, I have it there too.
It's-
9 o'clock
it's
in the morning.
scheduled for the
Is that,
31st.
excuse me?
It's scheduled for the 31st.
Okay, so we have to add that.
No, we don't.
It won't be on the
We're not having it.
I don't.
agenda.
Okay.
What one?
All right.
Is it
Not
on
supposed
there?
to be-
or no?
it's
No, no,
supposed to
we're
be
not. Done,
posted.
done.
It's Closed admin.
Close
Right,
that.
so it's closed,
Closed
okay.
admin.
Yeah, we don't normally put the administrative sessions on the agenda.
Okay. So,
Okay, so we probably cannot go to Veterans Advisory because we'll be in a closed admin.
It's at 9 in the morning. Hopefully, it's not that long. Our meeting's at 9 in the morning.
okay, so
At
yeah.
Veterans
well-
at 3.
Well, we can certainly make sure to be wrapped up by 3 if nothing else, so
I think it's supposed to be all day.
I think it is all day.
we'll figure it
wrap
out.
it up.
Yeah. Is there anything else for the good of the order? If not, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.